All right, everybody. Welcome to a very special edition of the Mystic Man podcast. It has been a long-ass time. Let me introduce my co-host. We got my boy, Leglock Limb, on the line. What's up, man?
I'm just blessed and honored to be here. I know when we first started our program, we promised that we would be consistent by providing a per week show. That hasn't been the case. We have taken I think about an 10-month hiatus, but nonetheless, we're still back. We're planning on doing probably like a 9-hour show just because we're going to summarize everything that happened since last July or last August. So we definitely have a lot to cover, but just bear with us. I promise it's going to be a very fun ride.
I agree. And because, we've been making the people wait for so long and all these fans have been asking every month, we got to give them a special gift. So we figured we'd expand our knowledge base a little bit and we'd bring in our new resident grappling expert, called Jiu-Jitsu, otherwise known as Joe Morgan. What's up, man? Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for inviting me on, guys. Just want to say from the jump that intro was classy and far superior to the one on that old podcast I used to appear on.
Well, it has a very special meaning to Daniel Lim because that was the soundtrack of perhaps the greatest night of his life. So, yeah, I think we're going to keep that one, even though our boy lost that night. But all right, let's get into it, man. I figured we'd actually start off with
McGregor Alvarez.
No, actually, before that, I wanted to ask you something.
Yeah.
Before that, I wanted to ask you something, Joe, actually, because when we first did the podcast for the first time, we talked a little bit about MMA and how we got into it because everybody knows us as boxing guys. So why don't you, give a short intro on how you got into the sport? I think you're still quite new to it, but you also started doing some grappling yourself. Just give a little bit of background on that, man.
Yeah, so myself, like many millions of boxing fans, just became very disillusioned with the fact that there was hardly anyone fighting. And then when the fights did happen, they sucked. And then you guys sort of turned me over to MMA, and I saw a few things. Probably, I'm not going to lie, I probably got into it around the time Conor was fighting Poirier, I think. I think that was when I started to sort of find out about this guy and who he was. And just like the many millions of new MMA fans, I think Conor really was the lubricant to enter the sport for myself. And since then, yeah, I've really gotten into it. Listened to a bunch of podcasts. Shout out to my boy Luke Thomas, taking some shit from John Jones recently, but let's stand with Luke. No, just all those guys that like MMA fighting, they're really good to just get into it. Obviously, it's really hard. It's hard for like UK fans anyway to watch fights because of this ridiculous time difference, and obviously with my work as well, it's very hard for me to take off like mental early mornings. But I've managed to keep up with a lot of things. Watched a couple of tough series, and then about 6-7 months ago, just decided to go to the local jiu-jitsu academy, and fell in love with it from there. It's been a really cool several months, and it's probably increased my respect for the ground game of jiu-jitsu because obviously having watched so much boxing, you kind of get more attracted to the strikers. But now, I think some of my favourite fighters now are probably pure jiu-jitsu guys like Maya, and obviously the older sort of generation and Silver and all that. But obviously, I'm not as well versed in the history like you guys. Like I'm getting through it. I'm on my educational journey through MMA, but no, it's just been it's refreshing to be in a sport where we get consistently high level fights. And even though 2017 hasn't really clicked for the UFC, it's been nice to actually be in a sport that rewards the fan instead of one that expects and asks things of a fan, like a boxing fan, which is just ridiculous. and it's just pure gratification in MMA, and it's entertaining, and yeah, so that's me.
Cool, man. Cool. Thanks for that.
I just wanted to let people know too that I just recently got my black belt from 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, which requires it requires me to watch, I think, about 30 hours of total YouTube content on a per month basis, along with 2 fabrications of some kind of conspiracy theory that ultimately Eddie Brown had to and it subsequently legitimized. So, yeah. If you guys want to congratulate me as well, I can show you some wicked jiu-jitsu moves if you guys ever seen me.
Vaporizers. You're going to put a vaporizer on me.
By the way, are you in 10th Planet Wales then, Joe, or what's your gym? Are you a Gracie guy?
So the affiliation is called Chris Reese Academy, and they've got one fighter in the UFC at the moment, a guy called Brett Johns, who just picked up his second UFC win on the Glasgow card a couple of weeks ago. But I'm sort of training out of because he's from a place called Swansea, and that's where Chris Reese runs his academy. But I'm in one of his students, a guy called Rob Taylor, that trains out of Cardiff. So yeah, shout out to anyone. The very small chance that someone listening to this is in the Cardiff area and wants a jiu-jitsu places to train out.
What's to roll with you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's amazing, yeah.
We're worldwide, bro. We're in discussions with we're in discussions with the Mac Life right now and getting like a contract fully signed up. You know, Connor's really interested in digging our product. So those weren't actually the exact words that Connor said. I think Connor wanted to sue us more than anything, but it's all good, man. We got to start a dialogue somehow.
But yeah, no, get yourself down to Rob Taylor. He's the current black belt middleweight champion for the UK.
All right,
All right, man. We have a laundry list of fights that we haven't talked about. I suggest that on certain fights we spend a little bit more time, and on other ones we just kind of run through them. I'm not quite sure if you guys are still emotionally invested in some of this stuff that we need to talk about. So let's keep up a good pace, and then after we did kind of a half of a year recap, I think we can get into a preview of the absolute fucking fantastic card that we have this weekend. So
I'm very happy.
You're very happy? Me too, man. It's gonna be. I think Joe Morgan is gonna be very happy after this weekend because his boy might be a UFC champion representing jiu-jitsu.
You bastard, got you 2 points.
I just need to do something so I can get rid of the images from the second embedded episode when Cyborg is going to that hair salon with Gabby Garcia. That was some of the most frightening shit that I've ever seen in my life. So I just need to erase all that shit from my prefrontal cortex if possible.
Agreed. All right, let's go back in time. Let's go to November 12th. 2016. Lim, I think you were in the building. It was the first UFC card in New York. Quite a milestone. And we had the main event, Alvarez versus McGregor, which was, I mean, for me personally, one of the most exhilarating moments I've ever fucking seen in MMA. I mean, Conor going up in weight once again, facing a guy that a lot of people, thought was either a 50-50 fight or just a little bit of a stretch for Conor to move up in weight and face Alvarez. McGregor looked absolutely fucking massive in the ring. I mean, he looked way bigger than Alvarez. And he put on another, just classy striking clinic. MMA striking clinic.
We can't use those fucking metaphors now. We're in a new world.
I mean, it was incredible, man. The hand speed, the fucking. I've always said it, man. McGregor is just so calm and loose in there, man. That's one of his biggest assets, just how relaxed and how much he believes in himself. And he just counterpunched the shit out of Alvarez and knocked him out and made history. And then the post-fight interview was also historically awesome once again. And it just catapulted him. It's such a new level I don't think anybody's ever reached in the sport. I mean, how did you experience it, Lim?
Yeah, the first thing I noticed was just how loose he was in there. Like my boy Joe said against Aldo. Oh wow, Connor looks so loose in there. Oh my God! So that's how I felt. Those are my reactions pretty much the entire. Honestly, I'm not gonna break down this fight. It was just amazing. The 4-punch combination that Connor just absolutely murked our boy Eddie with was pretty staggering. I don't know what the odds were. I think Connor was the slight favorite in this fight, but for me, I actually always thought that Connor was going to obliterate Eddie. I thought there were other problems at 155, and Eddie wasn't one of them. So that just obviously speaks again onto just how many different kind of stylistic matchups there are in this sport. But I thought this was his most favorable kind of opportunity to get that belt. Like you mentioned, the post fight was awesome. It became historic. It became part of pop culture here in the States with the Connor strut that a lot of other athletes, copy. And, his saying, like, I want to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody was fucking epic in person. And, being the champ, like he likes to refer to himself. It was a good night and just a good introduction to MSG, man. And it really highlighted that whole year. And we got to give shout outs to to some of our idols, like Luke Thomas, like you mentioned, Joe, our boy Ariel Helwani, Esther Lynn, Sean Al-Shadi. These are the pioneers of the journalism. We try. But
don't forget Mark Ramundi.
Oh, my boy Ramundi. Apologies to Ramundi. And
Jordan Breen over at Sherdog.
There's that other motherfucker that looks like Ian McCall, whoever that guy is. But anyway, a lot of people mentioned that this kind of summarized the year in a very grand way that allowed the sport to be sold for $4 billion. And I think it's true. I think without Connor, the sport doesn't get sold for that money or for that price tag. So, it was a really amazing year. 2016 was probably their most successful year, definitely from a financial perspective, but even from an entertainment perspective, it was pretty amazing. So, just a great way to cap the year. Obviously, there were a ton of other fights on that card that were pretty good, but honestly, the card overall was kind of disappointing. It was so stacked, but the level of fights honestly weren't all that great. But I think Connor really saved it with just that, ultimatum of a fucking performance.
Joe, any thoughts on that main event?
No, not really. It was probably Connor's easiest win, obviously, apart from the Aldo fight that he's had in his entire UFC run, which says a lot, I think, when he was challenging for his second world title at a new weight, to have the second easiest fight of his career. It's just unbelievable. I don't think people really can appreciate the magnitude of that. Just going up and just I've watched the fight so many times now, and there isn't a single second in that fight where you think Alvarez is a danger.
Agreed.
Just destroys him. Completely and utterly ruins a guy that it was like 50-50 beforehand, I reckon. Probably Alvarez might have even been slight favourite.
I think Connor's striking is so far ahead of most people in the UFC, and it's somehow that conversation gets a little bit diluted of the whole entry into boxing. But when it comes to MMA striking, this guy's on a fucking another level. I really think his for MMA, his stance, his footwork, the way he can slide in and out, the way it kind of benefits his takedown defense as well, the way he stands. It's really is the closest thing to perfection. And I think it's very technically sound as well. We've seen guys in the past like Anderson Silva that really, really rely on reflexes a little bit too heavy for my liking.
Dominic Cruz as well.
Well, we'll get to that actually. But Connor is so precise, and his punches are so fucking straight as well down the pipe. It really is a joy to watch. And by the way, Lim, the guy that you were talking about that looks like Ian McCall is Danny Segura, the Colombian kid.
And he has half his brain cells. That's it. He's a dummy. Go ahead.
No, just to bring it back, I think obviously Connor's opponents are mentally I don't think they're beaten, but they're just weary. But even before they've even gotten in the octagon, because Alvarez just made exactly the same mistake that every other opponent apart from Nate Diaz did, where they just completely underestimate him. and they think that they're so far superior, and he's just this little arrogant punk that they're going to go in there and beat up. They beat themselves up even before they're in the octagon. And I think there's a really good video. I think the channel is Fight Effect on YouTube, where they isolate the corner audio for McGregor and Alvarez. And the instructions that he gets, he's not even responding to, because he's just in there under his spell, under Conor's spell, just in his game, and there's nothing that the corner can do to stop it.
Well, I think he was concussed a little bit as well, to be honest.
Yeah, probably. And also, it doesn't help when your striking coach, talks all that shit against Conor, only to get freaking served like that. And excuse my pun, because he is a pizza man. So, but other than that, no. The whole thing too was, if I'm not mistaken, this was the first stint where Conor was conditioning exclusively under the Conor McGregor Fast program. Am I mistaken?
Is this the nutritionist guy that he's got?
Well, I think Conor has like a fast. He has this program called the Fast program that he sells exclusively on his website. If you guys want to buy it, it's a 12-week program where he essentially goes through different phases of cardiovascular training. And I think this is the first time where he's been fully under that program, and it just showed. I'm trolling right now, honestly.
Yeah,
but
he looked great.
His stand-up defense is really fucking good. And maybe Eddie was concussed in certain situations, so his takedowns weren't as good as they usually are. But man, Conor has some really good stand-up defense, and my God, his glutes are just so massive.
Doesn't he just look amazing at 155? That he just looks absolutely perfect for that weight.
Yeah.
He has a gorilla ass, if I can copy that from GQ. I read this piece where they were just describing Conor's butt for like a paragraph, like it's just gargantuan. So I think that really does help a lot in his takedown defenses.
Agreed. Okay, let's just quickly move on then, because we had the rest of the card obviously as well. We had Tyron Woodley versus Wonderboy Thompson. Good fight. Bit passive at times, but we obviously had that go into a draw and result in quite an uneventful rematch as well. We had at least my girl, Joanna Jędrzejczyk. I think she's fucking awesome. She fought Karolina, the Polish girl. Great fight as well. I think Joanna is obviously quite a dominant champion, but she is just so fucking fantastic in striking as well. I mean, she has a really, really nice Muay Thai background that is integrated pretty flawlessly, I think, in MMA. She's got very strong takedown defense as well. Though I must say she hasn't really faced anybody that has like a proper like wrestling pedigree that, would be able to take her down to really test her off her back. But she's so far she's done fantastic, and I love watching her fight, man. The kicks, the elbows, the punches, the combinations, everything is just really, really crisp. I mean, what do you guys think about Joanna?
She's cool.
She just needs to go on, Lynn.
No, she's cool. That's it.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. She's good. She just needs to add that finishing aspect to her game to take it to the next level. But...
Yeah, she likes power, I think, a little bit. But, for me, I love watching her fight, too. She's
like Mighty Mouse, isn't she? She's the female Mighty Mouse. She's just very, very, very good.
Very, very good. Very solid, yeah. I think the closest probably test in terms of fighting a wrestler was probably her last fight, when she was fighting that Brazilian dyke, who was super powerful.
Jessica Andrade.
Andrade, yeah, she stopped her takedowns pretty well. I think Andrade fought at 35 before, right? So she was definitely a big girl, and she held her own. So, yeah, I think Joanna is really fucking solid. It'll be interesting to see if they open up a 25 division for the females so that she can try to become a champ. But I don't know, man. That's pretty much it. I think she's also in a very kind of peculiar situation, kind of like DJ, in that she's kind of already fought the best at the weight division already. She's going to fight my girl Thug Rose, which I'm curious to watch, but it's too early for Rose. Rose, I think, is probably the second most like physically talented fighter in that weight division. She does some really creative shit, but I don't think she's ready for it because she's so young.
Well, if Rose manages to get her down to the ground, I give her a chance to really test Joanna's ground game. The problem is she going to get there? And she has to be very, very persistent in this fight, because I think if she chooses to stand with Joanna, like quite a few girls do, surprisingly, she's going to be eating a lot of punches and elbows. You know, I mean, Joanna, I don't think she has any rival on the feet. So she's got to have a Demian Maia type of game plan if she wants to stand a chance, in my opinion.
What I will say about Joanna is that she's actually really increased the legitimacy and credibility of the lower women's weight divisions. Because I think if they'd have had multiple champions with the belt going back and forth, 6 champions in the last 8 fights or whatever, people would have turned off the division a little bit. But because it's Joanna, and she's this really dominant long champion, that every time she fights, it's a more of a interest in that division, just because you're waiting to see the girl that can take the belt, and it gives that belt a real sense of credibility now.
Well, you say belt, I say the whole of women's MMA. I think there's a lack of women that really have exceptional quality, whether it's striking or grappling or any type of skill set. I think it's quite rare that you have somebody that's on that level. So just her being consistent, especially with Rousey out of the picture, I think she just added a lot of legitimacy to women's MMA and also popularity, because she is quite popular among the hardcore community, especially. Like everybody that's kind of an MMA nut absolutely fucking loves her.
Yeah, she's a badass, man. She's a tough girl.
No, absolutely. Lim, you wanted to add anything to that?
No, just that weight division without Joanna is absolute dog shit. They try so hard to push these pretty 115ers like Paige Van Zandt and Michelle Watterson, who has the worst fucking nickname in sports history, Karate Hottie. Like, what the fuck is that?
Like, get out of here.
I like it too, actually.
I hate it.
But I like Michelle Watterson.
I've always had this thing where I've always hated my own kind, so I just hate Asian people in general. So maybe
I wanted Michelle Watterson to get I wanted her to get the Joanna fight after she beat was it Paige?
Yeah.
Yeah, they should have put her in then, because her stock was really high at that point.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have turned out well for her though.
Oh my goodness. Absolutely not. Yeah. Anyway. Further down the card. Khabib? Is that the next big card? Next big fight?
Well, you could skip to Khabib Ferguson if you want to talk about that. Or we'll save
it's coming up. It's coming up. We got a couple of other things in between. So we had Yoel Romero obviously versus Chris Weidman on that card. I think we can talk about Weidman a little bit later on when we kind of review his comeback and his losses. After that, we had the Tough Latin America 3 finale. Jeez. Where we had Dos Anjos fighting the Ferg, which was a fucking awesome fight. I mean, that was a 5-round tear-up. One of the best fights I saw that year. Ferguson kind of surprised me. I know me and Yulin went back and forth about this fight when we tried to predict it. And, we kind of thought that Ferguson's downfall would be his creativity and his, kind of wild shit that he tends to throw. But that was actually kind of what overwhelmed RDA, and he was surprisingly accurate. He was a lot more accurate than I thought he would be. Kind of busted him up over the length of 5 rounds, and it was a fantastic performance. And I think, again, it's really a type of performance where that elevated him into the elite status of the division. What was your thoughts on that fight?
It's a tough break for RDA going straight from the Alvarez loss into Ferg, but he's a beast, Ferguson, isn't he? Like I'd pick him to beat Khabib, and he's got the best chance of anyone of beating Conor in that division by far. So he's just an absolute machine, that kid. And his mentality is spot on as well. He hasn't got this like ego, I'm going to go in there and wreck people. He just takes guys seriously, does his stuff, trains hard, and then just goes in there and just gets the win. He's a beast, man. I love Ferguson.
I do too. I love RDA as well, and I think that version of, I'm not going to really comment too much on the fight. You guys did it pretty well, but when RDA was in his prime, that stretch that I think ended with the Pettis win. That version of RDA I put there with any guy at that weight class in history. I thought he was incredible at that time. So explosive, so quick. I mean, sure, if you want to say it was steroids, I mean, go ahead. But obviously, there's no proof, and he was USADA tested against Cerrone, which he also looked fucking amazing in. So I just think RDA makes too much of a cut to fight at 55. I've seen him in person. He literally is the biggest guy I've ever seen. Just kind of like at that weight, like he's so, and I'm not trolling. He really is like so dense. I've never seen anybody with that much muscle mass. Like at that height before in my life. So there's also stories that he passed out when he fought Alvarez. Like he literally passed out before he was making his walk. So he had to cut incredible amounts of weight. And I think if he could have just made the weight a little bit better, if the UFC had more, demarcations in the weight classes, that would have favored him obviously a lot more. But I just want to like pay homage, I guess, to RDA, man, because when he fought Pettis and even to the build up to the Conor fight, I thought Conor was going to lose against RDA just because he was that scary to me. So it kind of sucks that he's in this position now, but but Tony definitely did the damn thing, and I'm really excited to see him versus Khabib, which we'll talk about later. But Tony definitely is another one of those guys, along with Khabib, that can give Conor some serious issues.
Well, let's segue into that then, because I had one fight in between kind of on the timeline, but we can get into this now that we're talking about it. I mean, we had UFC 209 where Ferguson versus Khabib was signed, and, I think for pretty much every damn MMA fan out there, this was an absolute fucking dream fight, and everybody was pumped. Everybody kind of, I mean, especially Khabib, this guy was really, really hyped. Brutal ground game, absolutely savage. One of the best grapplers that we've probably ever seen in the UFC, but quite fragile in terms of injuries. And he's had his troubles in the past. And then what happened was just, it was just a pure disaster, right? I mean, he claims, I think he personally claimed that it didn't have to do with the weight cut, but I think everybody kind of, drew their own conclusions about why he pulled out. He said he just got sick, right, if I remember correctly. And he needed to go back and reevaluate his health and stuff like that. It was all very weird and vague about what really was the problem. But given how big this guy is, and we had the classic tiramisu segment on UFC Embedded where he was, feasting on a nice dessert. It's not. It kind of makes you put one and one and two together, and that it's probably due to a horrendous weight cut that fucked up his immune system, and one thing led to the other. But what a goddamn disappointment, guys! I mean, that would have been such an amazing fucking fight.
That was the worst like kind of night in Vegas of my life. It was the worst card I've been to because it was summarized and ended by the T-Wood Lucky Boy rematch, which was the worst MMA fight I've ever seen in my life. It was awful, and also took this horror to the fight who was just nagging on me all night. So that didn't help. This fight is boring. Why'd you take me to this? I was like, all right. Anyways, that's a different story, but it was so disappointing. Because that was the card. That was the whole point of me going to that card was Khabib Tony, and I'm not sure I don't know if that was this year. Yeah, it was this year. It was it was a fight that I was looking forward to the most. I don't know in quite some time. Honestly, I don't know other matchups that I was more excited about than Tony. Conor. Yeah, exactly. No, but even then, I was looking forward to this fight more than Conor Eddie because to me it was more of a fascinating and intriguing matchup just because they matched up so well against each other in terms of just the stylistic clash. It was so fascinating to watch, and I've always been a huge proponent of Khabib. I think Khabib is fucking incredible, especially on the ground. What he did to Michael Johnson. I know Johnson is absolute dog shit on the ground, but he's just so vicious, man. His ground and pound is fucking insane. And if he can make 55 moving forward, he's a real problem, obviously. I mean, there's no point in me saying that. Everyone knows that.
It's real violent, Lim. He's the type of guy that, he's not going to just go for the submission. Damian Maia tends to just strangle you and get it over with. But Khabib uses his whole weight and momentum to just wear you down and just rain very, very fucking violent punches on your face and on your body. And it's almost uncomfortable to watch. Like the way he just fucking mauled Michael Johnson was scary.
I think that's because that's his go-to. That's his like A game. Because like Maya, obviously being a black belt in BJJ, he like it's almost unnatural for him to start striking on someone. He wants the submission, whereas Khabib, not having that jiu-jitsu background, coming from combat sambo or whatever, which is like purely based on striking and grappling. It's like almost unless the submission is so blindingly obvious that he's going to take it, he's going to try and beat them down, because I think for him it's more of a victory if he can get the TKO from his ground and pound than the submission.
I do think it's also his personal style. I mean, we've had more sambo guys, obviously, in MMA, right? I mean, the most famous one is Fedor Emelianenko, the heavyweight god, you know. And he was very, very aggressive in going for submissions. Like he would dive on that shit. And I don't know. Maybe I never really see much footage either of Khabib really focusing on like pure jiu-jitsu. I could be wrong there, but I've never really seen him do that.
He's always just on the ground on a heavy bag, just elbowing it into the turf, isn't he? He's never like rolling with someone, just pure like submissions. He's always got a bag and he's just working it.
Yeah, and once he's got a dominant position on you, I mean, the sheer size of him, the legs, the back, you know, like it's crazy how he makes the weight. It's so tough to get him off. He just literally sticks on you. He's able to generate a lot of power as well, and in such a short distance on the ground. I mean, it's quite incredible. I like that fight also because of how creative Ferguson is on his back.
I was just about to say that contrast between Ferguson, who'll get a submission where you don't even really think it's on, and then he just slips on a Darce choke really easily, and you're just like, I didn't even see that coming. He's so creative, and then you've got this brute power. Obviously, there's a huge amount of technical skill in what Khabib does as well, in terms of how he like shifts his underhooks to get guys down on the ground. Like that can't be underestimated, because that's such a huge part of MMA now. Is just because I think most guys can sort of get into the sort of the clinch bit where they've pushed them up against the fence, but the real technical skill is actually not just putting them down, but maintaining control as you take them down. Because I think anyone can just trip someone up or dump someone, but it's the fact that they stay in a dominant position with good grips or with an underhook whilst he's being taken down, and that's where Khabib is just so good at.
So, Joe, this is why we brought you on the show. I mean, this technical breakdown is fantastic. Thank you for that.
It reminds me of Luke Thomas. It's funny, I was actually just...
Get the slides out.
Yeah, they did our boy dirty yesterday. I think I'm rooting for DC now. So we're Team DC, Team Luke Thomas. We got your back, homie.
I like Luke, man. He's a little bit hipster in some of the things he says, and always tries to be a bit, you know, controversial, but he's got a wealth of knowledge that he shares with everybody, man. So shout out to him.
Shout out.
All right, let's move on. So we had another massive fight on the 30th of December, 2016. We had the return of Ronda Rousey versus Amanda Nunes, which was quite a big fight. I mean, I think it did quite a lot of pay-per-views as well, but a very, very one-sided shellacking, basically, of Nunes just punching the shit out of Rousey and exposing her striking once again. She looked fucking terrible. And
head movement. No.
I mean, we've said it many times that her camp, led by Edmund, is just, you know, there's a lot of things wrong with it, and Edmund is an absolute scumbag that kind of manipulates his own fighters into thinking that there's some kind of, you know, Mike Tyson type of figure. And it's always very satisfying to go back and watch old YouTube interviews where he's talking about Ronda knocking out Olympic champion level boxers. It's like,
I need to take guys to task on this because I actually probably wasn't into MMA as much as I was then. And did you guys all just watch that and just accept what he was saying? Because I can't believe how he didn't get more shit when he was saying that stuff at the time. But it's only now that Rousey's been exposed that guys are shitting on her. Like, did you guys hear that and were like, fair enough?
No. I mean, he was an internet sensation kind of from the start, to be honest. I mean, I'm always lurking on ShareDog forums and stuff like that. And she was always a laughingstock in terms of her striking. You have those famous gifs of her shadow boxing where she looks like a retard. I mean, those have been around forever. That was even when she was a champion, right? And people have always said when she finally has somebody that she cannot take down, she's fucked, right? And we've had Miesha Tate already land a few hands on her. But her ground game and her takedowns were just so goddamn good that, she never really got exposed for it. And then there was, somebody as athletic and had such great movement as Holly Holm that exposed her. And then it really escalated, right? Because she got fucking tagged up. And against Nunez, I mean, she was just, I don't know, she looked shook almost. She didn't have a chance. As soon as the first punch landed, and I think it was a jab, the fight was pretty much over already. I mean, it was just a matter of time before she got mauled.
She's a child, like, mentally. She has the emotional intelligence of a small child when they lose. So when a child loses a board game, he just sits there and cries, or he doesn't really know how to come to terms with it, and he just doesn't accept that they've lost. So then they don't want to play another game, or when they do that, they're rubbish at it. And it was like I actually went back and I watched her bronze medal match or her semi-final in the Olympics to when she was a judo competitor. And if you go back and actually watch when they announced the decision that Rousey's actually lost the fight by like a point or something, she does the exact same reaction as when she lost the home fight, where she just stares into the ground. There's no like congratulating the opponent or trying to like come to terms with what's just happened. She's just lost in there. You just knew that when that happened again in an MMA ring in terms of home, she wouldn't have accepted the loss. She wouldn't have come to terms with what had happened and realised that, well, maybe my striking isn't as good as I thought it was. Maybe I just need to stick to what I'm good at. She would have just tried to isolate herself entirely from what had happened down in Australia. And as soon as she got tagged by that first Nunez punch, it probably just all came back to her. And there was just nothing that she could do in there except just march forward and getting her head taken off. And actually, the fact it went on far longer than I thought it would, because I thought they could have stopped that fight a good minute before they did, because she was offering absolutely nothing in there.
I think that fight lasted 58 seconds, so bro.
I kind of get your point, though.
I get your point entirely, though. And I agree with everything you just said. And that's why I don't put much stock in this loss, honestly. I think Ronda has to be, she has to be obviously congratulated for what she's accomplished in the sport. But that Nunes fight, she probably would have lost to Nunes regardless whether she fought her before the Holly fight. But you're 100% right. I think she just had flashbacks when that first jab landed, and she just looked lost. So this, to me, isn't even something that I really want to discuss anymore. I was never a fan of Rousey. I don't give a fuck about her. I think the sport is better without her. So let's move on to the main fight.
Yeah, but seriously, but honestly though, like, it's hard. You've got to appreciate what she's done for women's MMA.
Oh,
like, she was the face. She was the face of the UFC for like a good year and a half when Anderson came to an end and Jones was out with his suspensions.
Not only that, though, she took the sport to greater heights than either of those guys were able to. The fight became mainstream because she obviously connected very closely with the female audience, and she was just a more presentable figure in that she spoke English, unlike Anderson, and obviously she wasn't doing coke off of strippers' titties like our boy Jones was. So you have, but I'm never one to really hate on Rousey all that much. She's accomplished so much in the sport, and without her,
it's a good point. Like, I don't think fans hate her.
Yeah, I almost feel bad for her, honestly.
Oh,
you mentioned.
Yeah. I don't.
I do. I think she has, some of those demons like Joe just alluded to. And, I don't know if she was an only child, but obviously she had a really fucked up childhood. So, she kind of grew up in isolation, I assume.
She just needed like somebody professional to actually help her deal with it.
Yeah.
to isolate herself from everything and the media. Because I know not everyone can be a Dominic Cruz sort of character where they're just an even better bloke after they've lost. But there's a certain like level of behavior that's normal for a sane human being after they've lost a fight. It doesn't matter how disappointed you are. You've got to accept it at some point, and she just never has, and I don't think she ever will.
What are you talking about?
What are you talking about? Hey, I just want to make one thing clear to all of our listeners, bro. Like, I've never had a chase pussy in my life, and I'm not gonna be chasing pussy. And I'm not gonna be chasing pussy on Saturday, bro. No, that's not happening.
Hey, dummy.
Hey, dummy.
All right, let's get into that, man, because that fucking co-main event, which should have just been the main event. Our boy, at least my boy, Cody Garbrandt versus the Dominator, Dominic Cruz. What a fight for fucking ages.
Guys, when we break down this fight, we have to end every single statement with bro. All right? So try to do like a NorCal Cody accent. But, bro, you see them titties, bro? You see them titties?
Oh, my God. But what a surprise, though, Lynn, right? I mean, who knew that Garbrandt had this in him? We always knew he was a powerful guy, with great hands. I mean, he puts hands on you, bro, when he fights you. The technical mastery, the athleticism, the head movement, it was absolutely a display. I mean, what a performance. Talking about performing under pressure. Jesus Christ, you're fighting the fucking greatest bantamweight of all time, and you just toy with him? Are you fucking kidding me? I mean, it was absolutely fantastic. The build-up itself was also great. I mean, I don't know anybody that's as unintentionally funny as Cody Garbrandt. He's such a bro. And
but you're the perfect guy opposite him in Cruz, who's like probably the most intelligent MMA fighter, just taking the piss out of him relentlessly.
Yeah, it's a great matchup, by the way. Just even in the press conference, you got such a, like you say, you got a guy like Cruz that just, he speaks so well. He's so sharp and intelligent, and Cody just he just wants to bang. Fucking amazing. But what a great fight. It's one of the fights that I actually go back, once in a while on my hard disk, just scoop it up and just put it on the HD TV and just watch and just enjoy it, man. What an amazing fight.
I actually wanted Cruz to win this fight so badly. So I thought, I looked at Cruz and he was just like, he's everything I love about combat sports and fighting in general. He's just such an amazing human being. And I actually listened to one of his interviews he did when he went on the Joe Rogan podcast. And that was just 3 hours of just ear pause.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I probably haven't really explained to you the extent of my man crush on Cruz, but yeah, no, it was serious, bros. But yeah, no, bro. It was just like, it was just purely fundamentals that Garbrandt had. He didn't do anything too special. He just, whatever he did really well. He just pivoted on that front foot, like Cruz with his mad footwork. Just that throws off so many people, and I think Garbrandt was just unfazed by it. Kept his punches just a real simple combinations. Didn't go chasing the finish either. Like, he could have got caught up when he went down.
He doesn't chase pussy, bro. He made that clear.
He's actually right.
But, yeah,
if you look back on it, that was a pretty amazing statement. It's a very deep statement.
Yeah.
Like, to make that connection, he never had a chase pussy in high school, and he never had a chase pussy in the octagon,
Dude, that's how he visualized it, man. Like, he let Cruz come to him and countered him, It's quite an incredible
maybe Garbrandt's just operating on a much deeper level than any of us.
Yeah. Oh, shit.
But I do want to say something about this fight, right? Because I've been a Dominic Cruz skeptic. I think he's a great athlete, but I see so many fucking flaws in him, and I was very surprised that he never got exposed before. But I actually thought he lost the Dillashaw fight, and I've said
what?
And I've yes, man, I thought he lost that fight 3-2, and I've fucking annoyed Lim with this forever. I've always said Cruz is vulnerable to leg kicks. Why doesn't anybody kick this guy in the fucking legs? And Dillashaw did it like 4 times, and the guy was limping already. Now, the strange thing is that I still believe that's the blueprint. But fucking Garbrandt, he didn't even do that. He just timed his head movements. He timed his footwork. He just figured him out completely. He didn't even need to chop down the legs. That was so incredible about that performance.
Cody might be one of the, like, pound for pound, the quickest athlete in the sport, just in terms of reflexes and fast twitch. And he was a former Golden Glove boxing champion, so he's a decorated boxer. And I think it clearly shows. He fights like a boxer, like pivoting on his front foot. Not many fighters do that in the UFC. You know, things are kind of more straight down the middle, or you kind of turn out as you're nearing towards the cage. You don't see too many guys pivoting in the middle of the octagon like Cody does. So I honestly think Cody would transition the best into boxing if you compare any single person on the roster. I know, like, he sparred against Gervonta Davis in the past, and Gervonta was saying like how good Cody is. So his boxing is definitely spot on, and he's just a really fast twitch athlete. So I definitely see him. The thing is, TJ is probably his toughest matchup at that weight class, but I could see Cody, reigning that division for quite some time if his back just gets better. Obviously, I mean, he should have fought in, last month, but.
Garbrandt Dillashaw is such a sick fight as well.
It is a very good fight, and the trash talk will be epic, like usual.
Kobe. I love that whole dynamic.
I don't think Dillashaw is intelligent, though. I think.
Oh no.
I actually believe in that whole beef. I actually completely 100% side with Dillashaw in that. Like, I think Faber is just such a bitch. He just couldn't take that some guy had left his gym to just change a striking coach.
Yeah. I mean, come on, bro. When you create a gym under the name Team Alpha Male,
yeah, I know. What a shit name.
That's
you guys are haters, bro.
That's something that I said in high school when the first job that I ever interviewed, and this is so embarrassing to say live, but the interview question, "What's your weakness?" I said, I'm a little bit too alpha sometimes, and that was a big in my personal life. The guy was like, "Are you serious, bro?" So ever since then, like, the whole Team Alpha Male thing just kind of resonates me.
And you said 100%.
Why are you if you're a woman, though? Going to this patriarchal, chauvinistic fucking named gym.
Yeah, I know. And they have a ton of them, too. I know Paige used to train there. Gavalio
trains there. He was a fucking legend, man. Come on.
Shut up. Anyways. Yeah, it was a great fight. Really huge coming out party. And I think Cody can be like not like a superstar, but like a fringe star. Let's just hopefully his back gets better. And yeah, man, they're talking about him fighting Dillashaw in that New York card. I think in November. So fingers crossed.
Bro, they should just stick him up on the headline for that. Give him the push.
No, that's the Kane card. That's Kane versus our boy Stipe.
Yeah, but are they any of them really going to take the UFC forward?
In Cleveland, yeah.
Yeah.
Cleveland to that death.
But it's going to be at the MSG, isn't it? That Kane, Stipe, Garbrandt, Dillashaw.
It's a stupid move. They should put that shit in Cleveland every time.
Yeah, either take Stipe off and put him in Cleveland, and then stick Garbrandt as your headline in the MSG.
I'm down for that. All right, let's have a look. We have also a semi-decent card in UFC 210. There was Cormier versus Johnson, the rematch on April 8th, 2017. Yeah, that was basically Rumble Johnson's retirement fight.
Weedgate.
The what?
Weedgate.
What?
Weedgate. That's what he retired for. He's opening up like a cannabis store in Florida.
Oh, so. Okay, now I get what you're referring to. It's hot for weed again. Yeah, well, apparently, right? I don't know if he actually went through with that, but it was sad to see Rumble go. But from the perspective that, he didn't really have anything to accomplish anymore in the division because he tried so many times to get to the championship and he failed. And he always had guys like Cormier kind of blocking him, I can kind of see where he's coming from. If that was the reason behind it, he's the type of guy that just absolutely destroys mid-level guys, but when it comes to the upper echelon of the division, he just can't really hang with them, and he mentally seems to check out, especially against strong monsters.
Not even mid-level, man. Even against upper echelon, he fucking just blows by people. He's talent-wise, it's not even comparable, man. Like, this guy is just gifted with these talents that these other guys don't. Maybe John, but I mean, the way that he fucking murked Gus, who I think maybe you could make the argument that the most talented guy at that weight division. Like, dude, Rumble is a fucking beast, but
he's taken Gus's soul from that. Like, Gus doesn't the same.
Gus did well. Gus did pretty well in his fight against Teixeira, but nonetheless, yeah, I know. Rumble. I mean, talking about another high level guy, Rumble fucking just absolutely obliterated him too. So, yeah, it's sad to see because Rumble has so much fucking talent, but he just has the fight IQ of just like he fights. He's a mental midget, and I think he really comes up short in these high level situations. And talk about terrible game plans. Like, what the fuck was he doing trying to wrestle DC? Like, are you serious? Mm-hmm. Like, come on, just try to knock him out in the first round because your gas tank obviously sucks. But for him to resort to the ground game was puzzling to say the least.
I think in terms of legacy, Lim, I think this is probably, I would probably say that this is the most devastating striker that the UFC has ever had. If you look at, history, I think there's maybe two other guys that fall into that category. One is obviously Anderson Silva, and time-wise, you can maybe look at somebody like Chuck Liddell as well. But fucking the way that he puts guys to sleep, it's so violent, it's so concussive, and it's just straight up power, But there's a lot of technique involved as well at the same time. I mean, it really is quite incredible, I still do not understand how this guy ever made welterweight. I mean, it's fucking crazy, and it's too bad he actually kind of destroyed the first part of his career trying to cut so much weight, because once he went up, he just became a whole different fighter. He's got quite the legacy, I think, even though he never won a championship. But I would not be surprised if he comes back at one point, though.
Yeah, me neither. He already kind of hinted that on Twitter. And I think what also kind of screwed him was his training team. He never really had like a really functional, stable training team with Henry Hoof training over at Black Zillions. Like, what? Talk about another terrible name. Like, what the fuck are Black Zillions? But
Blacks
anyways,
and Brazilians.
I know, but that's just, again, it's cringy to me. But I don't think he had a good relationship with Henry Hooft either, in the way that Henry just kind of abandoned him in the post-fight of that whole thing was a little bit strange. But yeah, that's it for me. That poor Rumble, but hey, the show goes on.
Yeah, man. We had Mousasi against Weidman also on that card. A fight that was basically, just surrounded by a heap of controversy, where, again, we get into a situation, and there's another fight that we had, almost an identical fucking incident, where the MMA rules are basically preventing, a fight from, like, flowing properly. And one of the most ridiculous rules that we have is when you're, when you got one hand, when you're kind of bending forward and you've got one hand or even just one finger touching the fucking canvas, you can't knee somebody in the face. And there's kind of a workaround where you just lift the guy up, and basically you change the position and then fucking knee him in the face. I mean, it's quite a stupid rule for all the things that are allowed. I don't get why we have that. If you're trying to prevent like very concussive damage from a knee, I mean, that can happen at any second. Look at Romero versus Weidman. Like, a flying knee is going to do just as much as damage as a knee from that position. So I don't know why you have that fucking rule. It's fucking stupid, and it creates many like just awkward incidents where the ref also gets confused in the fight. Every time we have some shit like this go down, it always takes a long time for the commission to really get a conclusion, and often it's not even based on instant replay. So, if a knee has already landed, there's already so much damage being done that you can't just say, like, okay, continue the fight. You know, the whole momentum of the fight is gone, and it's already been biased towards the guy that's landed the knee. So it becomes way too complicated, man. I'm very much in favor of just allowing it, you know?
Yep, I agree.
All right.
Weidman to me is just, I know you're higher on Weidman than I am, and he's still your boy, but
He is.
I think Weidman's been pretty, I don't know if shop-worn is the right word, but he doesn't even fight in the same style that he did when he used to fight Anderson. He's not as aggressive as he was, and
he's trying to win in the most defensive way possible now.
Yeah, exactly, and that wasn't Chris in his lead up to his title shot. He was just so much more aggressive, and I mean, beating Kelvin is one thing, who is another fighter who's stuck in between weight classes, but I mean, the record kind of speaks for itself. I mean, he's 0-3 against top 5 level opposition at that weight class, so I don't think he's going to be kind of in that title rating position that he was once back in the day.
All right. Let's move on to another card then. We had quite a decent card, UFC 211, headlined by our boy Stipe Miocic versus Junior Dos Santos, the rematch. Again, Stipe Miocic just proving how much, you know, he's just grown as a fighter, as a champion. Also, you know, his personality is kind of coming out. I really, really like this guy, man. I think he's a fantastic heavyweight champion. He's got great hands, good takedown defense, vicious ground and pound. I mean, the way he also fucked up over him on the ground was just brutal. He's just a great athlete overall. He's a fucking firefighter. You know, he's Cleveland till he dies. I'm so high on this guy. I'm so high on this fucking guy.
People say that he hasn't got a personality. He's really funny. I watched some of the embeddeds. He's actually got a better personality than most others. I think he just gets quite shy in the media, and he's just too media trained.
I don't even know if it's that, but he I don't know. I think he's one of those guys who just likes to keep everything private. Yeah. And I mean, that doesn't make much sense because he obviously opens up in an embedded. Like, you guys remember that one embedded episode where they're playing the cards or something and he does some crazy shit with his fingers? Like, to me, Stipe is I think one of the funniest guys. Or when he's shopping.
You see the one where he calls his wife off the car phone and then just hangs up?
And his wife is a fucking dime piece too, so it makes it that much fun too. Or him like shopping for like random hunting accessories and, you know, shooting it in his garage. Like, he's a cool ass dude. He's like an all American dude. Like, if you had to picture somebody from the States who's actually not a dickhead, you know, I think of Stipe, but I don't know.
I think what you said is pretty much spot on because he's also admitted that, right? He said, like, I don't really like doing this whole media thing, and I'm just the type of guy that wants to fight and go home and relax. You know, like, I'm not really into the whole hoopla of being famous. Like, he's not really into that. So, you know, on the one hand, he's probably quite funny, and I do agree with you, Joe. He is kind of cheeky as well on camera, but on the other hand, he's not looking for the spotlight. You know, he's not like Conor, who will leverage that in order to draw more, in order to sell more, and he'll just propel himself as a megastar. Stipe doesn't have that desire. He just wants to be a champion. That's it.
He just wants to bang, and I get it. But it also puts him in another peculiar situation because he complains about his pay rate, which I completely agree with. I think he was paid less than JDS and Overeem in his title matches as a champion, which is absurd. But I just think that's kind of the direction of the sport lately, ever since Conor kind of made that the norm. You know, you do have to kind of put yourself out there a little bit more. So I think for his own sake, he should be a little bit more outgoing just because he is such a likable person. And he's getting in that range where the heavyweight history is kind of is so dry right now that he can really cement himself as one of the greatest heavyweights. And especially if he fights Kane and he murks Kane and MSG, I think he can make the contention that he is the greatest heavyweight.
Yeah, I think if he gets past Kane, and I think he will, because I think Kane's still... He's obviously an amazing fighter in his day, but I think he's past it now. They've got to. I think they've really got to make that Ngannou fight.
Like our boy Bishop says, you know, black on black crime.
They need to make that, but stick it in Paris or something. Just make it an absolute mega event. Just make that a coming out party of the heavyweights.
But the thing is, I don't think we can say Kane is done, because in his last performance, Kane looked amazing. It's just his health.
Sea-level Kane, that's why. He's at sea level.
I know, but his last fight, I know Travis Brown is a bum nowadays, but the way that Kane just obliterated Travis was amazing. Oh. It's just his health issues, obviously, but I don't think we can say that he's done, because that's his last performance, right?
But what I just hope that the UFC don't do is just waste, because obviously the heavyweight is so volatile, and like you say it in boxing where anyone could beat anyone, but in MMA heavyweights anyone really can beat anyone. So they shouldn't waste guys like Ngannou on just guys like Mark Hunt, who are just never going to get to that top level like they did with Derek Lewis. Like they needed to make Derek Lewis Ngannou instead of the Hunt fight. It was just completely ridiculous.
But I also do wonder with the Ngannou thing. I think Ngannou has a chance to be kind of like that carryover type of guy, just because you just look at him and you're like wowed by his physical presence. So I would be very careful in terms of putting him in there with somebody too good. But that Derek Lewis fight does make a ton of sense. But anyways, were there any other fights on that Cleveland card, worth mentioning?
There were a couple. One thing I just want to add once again, and I really don't understand it, is why don't they put this fucking guy every fight in Cleveland? I mean, if you want to make him a bigger draw, just build him up in his home fan base. It creates a storyline as well that will just attract more attention to him. When you have a guy that's this popular, I mean that Cleveland crowd when he knocked out over him. I've rarely seen a crowd like that in the United States in MMA. The craziest crowds I've seen are obviously in Ireland with Conor. Maybe with GSP in Canada, but that was fucking electric, man. And he's he's hanging out with LeBron and shit. Like, come on, man. You've got a guy that has such a great platform to build up on. You're gonna stick him like whether it's in Vegas or New York. There's no fucking point of it, man. I really do not understand it. You got to build him up in his home fucking town, But
the thing is, in the States as well, it's like because everything is so far apart. It's not like in the UK where if you put a London fighter in Manchester, you'll get a lot of London guys travelling up. It's literally like it's in a different fucking country. It's like putting a guy who's from London on a card in like Italy or Spain or something. No one will go over there and travel unless you like his family.
Yeah, I mean, I agree.
Fair enough if it's like you put a New York guy on in Rhode Island or Baltimore or just somewhere near, but it's just like Cleveland's miles away from anything. Just stick the guy in Cleveland. You've got guaranteed a huge gate there every time you go there with Stipe.
Dude, I just thought of the perfect card in Cleveland. Have Stipe and our boy Cody, No Love, two Ohio boys. Let them get at it, dude. Just let them bang.
Exactly. Fuck, man. Have Stipe come out with the Machine Gun Kelly as well. Do that Cleveland Till I Die live. Man, that shit's gonna be fucking electric. I don't know, man. Anyway, we had the rest of the card as well. Like we talked a little about Joanna versus Jessica Andrade, and then yes.
Not much to say about that. What's the next one?
Oh, dude, that was the probably the best display of ground and pound we saw all fucking year. Frankie Edgar versus Yair Rodriguez. Holy fucking shit.
Yeah,
you guys can go first.
No, Frankie's Frankie's a legend, man. And I think people forget about Frankie because he's obviously been in the game for so long, but just to imagine that small of a person fighting at 155 and being as successful as he was and still just like beating top level talent. I know Yair is a prospect, but like Frankie I just have so much respect for the guy. And I know he's fighting Holloway next, and it would be pretty remarkable and a great way to end his legacy if he could kind of retire as a two-weight champ. And I think he's just one of those guys you can't ever underestimate. He just does everything so well, and like you mentioned, his ground and pound is just so mean. So yeah, it was a pretty great performance to watch.
Joe, go ahead.
No, I loved the fight when it was made. Like the the young up and comer. I know he murked BJ Penn in his last fight, but you know he was still a bit of a talent. And then obviously the guy that had always like fallen short, and it gets people emotionally invested in it now, because if they'd have just chucked Edgar back in with Holloway, there wouldn't have been as good a storyline. But now he's gone away. He's fought the young gun of the division, and he's coming up for his pretty much what's going to be his last title shot. You'd think. The Holloway fight just makes it so much more watchable than it was before, and I'm actually really looking forward to Holloway Edgar.
Yeah, man. I mean, one thing that surprised me was just a difference in level, man. I mean, Yair was obviously a very exciting guy on the come up. Fought a completely shot BJ Penn, so that doesn't really tell us much. But you know, he kind of passes the eye test. But on the floor, Edgar is just miles and miles ahead of him. And we rarely seen Edgar go that strongly, for the finish as well. Like just being fucking aggressive in there. Absolutely incredible. So again, what a performance from Edgar. And I can just, all I can do is echo whatever you said, Lim. Frankie Edgar is just an instant Hall of Famer as soon as this guy retires. What he's accomplished. I mean, his performances date back so long. The wars he had with Gray Maynard as well. So many amazing nights that we've had with Edgar, man. Absolutely fantastic fighter. Great fucking guy as well. He's just a pure warrior.
Yeah, such a good dude, man. I met him, and he's just one of the nicest people ever. He's got that thick New Jersey accent, but he's just like such a genuine, just down to earth guy. And like, goddamn, does he have a fucking chin? And his recovery skills are second to none. So I love Frankie, man. He's one of my favorite fighters for sure.
Absolutely. On the undercard, we also had another fantastic fight, which was the other fight I was referring to when it comes to MMA rules spoiling the party. So we had Eddie Alvarez against Dustin Poirier. That was fucking tear up for as long as it lasted. Both guys are kind of vulnerable and a little bit chinny, and they just started going at it, hurting each other, back and forth. And then all of a sudden we have a situation where Poirier is doing exactly the same thing as Weidman was doing, hand on the floor. Alvarez knees him and then lifts him up and knees him. It creates another messy situation, and ruins well, it didn't really ruin it for me because I still go back and watch the fight. But it was such a bloody, violent affair. A great fight. What did you guys think of it?
No, great fight. To me, it's only ruined by the simple fact that they're not having the rematch. Eddie's fighting Justin Gaethje, which is going to be another great fight, but I really wanted to see them rematch right away. So that is the only part that kind of irks me. But in the moment, it ended in 2 rounds, right? That was a 2-rounder.
I think it was in the second round, where the ref stopped it, and then it just kind of fizzled out.
Yeah, I don't blame Eddie at all. I just think, Eddie was definitely concussed in that first round, and I just think, all those kind of like mental kind of inhibitions are completely thrown out the window. And I think, again, Eddie's recovery skills are just so amazing, and I think that kind of puts, Conor's level of striking also kind of on display, where Conor is much more accurate, and once you're hurt, you kind of don't recover as well. But if you fight a guy like Poirier, who's a little bit more wild, you can never really count Eddie out of it. But I'm just worried about Eddie's health, honestly. He's been in so many goddamn wars, and Justin Gaethje next. He's probably going to get in another stand-up, kind of just a punch fest. So I hope he hangs him up soon. I hope he has enough money in his bank account. But I cringe a little bit watching him go through all the fucking wars that he has. Because even though people like to make fun of Eddie, he is a good dude, and he is somebody that I do root for. I just hope he doesn't retire a little bit too late for his own health.
He is actually a really good dude. I think the problem with him is he never. He had big fights, but I don't think he's ever really made a shitload of money that he can just comfortably retire. So he's probably going to keep fighting for a long time, and he loves training. He's always in shape. He loves the fight game. So yeah, he's taken a lot of punches, man. For those listening that haven't seen it, go check out his fights in Bellator as well when he had these fucking toe-to-toe wars with Michael Chandler. Absolutely incredible fights. I mean, it just goes back so many years. He's even had great fights as well in Japan. he's quite a legend actually in MMA. So he's another guy I would probably put maybe not in the UFC Hall of Fame, but definitely in an MMA Hall of Fame.
Sure.
Joe, unless you have anything to add up to that, I suggest we move on to the next event.
Yeah, go.
Yeah, so we already talked about Holloway and Aldo a little bit. So UFC 202, we had Aldo versus Holloway. I would describe this as, I would describe this as just, kind of the new replacing the old in terms of champion. Like Holloway has been seen as a talented prospect for so long, but I think what happened in this fight, nobody really could have predicted, right? I mean, I know you were shocked, Lynn, by this.
Yeah, because I thought Aldo looked great in that fight. I thought Aldo was going to stop Holloway, but I just think Holloway has an incredible fucking chin. He got hit with a couple of two pieces, I think, early in that fight, to quote our boy Brendan Shaw, and he was completely unfazed by it. He just kept coming. Aldo looked really quick. I thought he looked really fast and explosive, like he usually is. And to me, like, this isn't one of those fights where I say, Holloway beat like an older legend or somebody who was, past their prime. And maybe Aldo was, but I give Holloway full credit for beating Jose Aldo, because I thought Aldo looked incredible against Frankie, and we were just, gobbling Frankie's nuts a couple of minutes ago, and Jose just completely dominated him at UFC 200. So to me, this is like as legitimate as it gets. And if Holloway can beat Frankie, my God, that's like a 12-fight winning streak. So you got to, I think, consider him as one of the greatest featherweights of all time, just because he is so dominant and he's so tough. He's so long and rangy, and the guy just does a lot of things really, really well. But it is going to be really interesting to me to see how he handles with Frankie's, takedowns in wrestling. But regarding this fight itself, man, I think Holloway's pretty damn special, and he's grown so much since that Conor fight. So hopefully he continues this reign, and if he can make that weight comfortably, man, I don't really see too many guys beating him, honestly. Like, he's already beat most of the guys at that division. Like, who's honestly going to challenge him?
There aren't a lot of guys, and I think you bring up a good point as well. He is quite big at the weight. I don't know for how long he's going to be able to do that, but so far I don't think he has really any issues making weight. So maybe it's just visually that it looks quite crazy that he's able to make it, but you're right. I can see him reign as a champion for quite a long time.
Yeah, I think what helps him too, he doesn't have Conor's muscle definition. He doesn't have those big glutes, like the back, obviously, that Conor does. I mean, God, Conor's back is so massive. I just love looking at that on Instagram every day when I wake up. But yeah, anyways, I don't want to get too carried away.
No, let's calm down a little bit. I wanted to just quickly have a little bit of an interlude where we talk about, somebody that I was a massive fan of, and it's probably still my favorite fighter of all time.
That's Bruton.
Nah, good guess, but no. It's BJ Penn, man. Honestly, prime BJ Penn was the most exciting guy to watch for me. I mean, he was an absolute fucking savage, so talented. I mean, there was nobody really that could match him at the time in terms of talent and just ability, athleticism, everything, man. His downfall was always a little bit, his discipline in training, but what's happening now with BJ is just fucking sad, man. Like, he just can't stop fighting, he comes from a wealthy family. He's made quite a bit of money himself as well. He's able to live comfortably on Hawaii with his beautiful fucking wife and his kid. And he just is not willing to lay down the gloves. And he's already retired and then come back. The whole thing with, joining Greg Jackson's camp had us believe somehow that he would improve and, he's a new BJ Penn. Motivated BJ Penn is like, that was the prelude to C-level Kane. Everybody always talks about a motivated fucking BJ Penn. And it's just getting to the point now where he fought Dennis Seaver, who's way past it. I think he's 35 years old, and he couldn't even beat him. And it's just really fucking sad. I really, really get sad when I watch BJ Penn fight. I mean, he is really a shell of his former self. There's no bounce in his step anymore. His hand speed is so fucking slow. He used to have fantastic boxing. Doesn't really use the ground game anymore. And he just got outpointed by somebody who's old and not even that good. So I just want him to retire, guys. I don't want to see this guy take more and more hits to the head. He has got probably one of the best chins of all time. I don't know anybody that has a better chin than BJ Penn. And, I mean, he fought a heavyweight, for fuck's sake. I don't know if you guys have any comments on this, but I really need to just express that because, I will be a fucking BJ Penn fan for life, but I just want this guy to stop fighting, man. Really.
Yeah, no, it's sad, mate. Like, I went back and watched all his early stuff, his BJJ work in the Mundials in '99, and it's hard to appreciate how good the achievement of winning the World Jiu-Jitsu Champion in 2000, being the first non-Brazilian to win it. I mean, I guess that's why he was the prodigy, because I think there's a story that he was the quickest guy to win a black belt or something like that. I've heard something like that going around.
He apparently won the Mundials after I think it was 3 or 4 years of training.
He moved out to train at a Gracie Academy in California, and it was 3 years later he was winning the Mundials, and it's just fuck, man, he's just such a beast back in the day. Obviously wasn't around when he was in his prime live, when he was fighting your Matt Hugheses and all that. But going back and looking at all these fights, you just see a completely different animal to the guy that lost to fucking Dennis Seaver. Sad to see, man. And the worst thing about it is that he's obviously going to continue. If he leaves the UFC, you just know that Bellator or Rising or Pride will just immediately chuck him some mega money to go and fight in their organisation. And knowing BJ, he'll just do it because he's got that. He's a fighter. He's just got that instinct. He doesn't want to give up and go work in a gym holding a bucket for a new pro to come up. He still wants to be out there competing. But I think he should just go back and just do some sort of submission grappling stuff, like some of those submission undergrounds.
Yeah.
You saw John Jones and flipping Henderson in. Just do stuff like that if you want to compete. Just nothing that will deteriorate your body and your brain damage any more than it already has.
I think it already has, man. I mean, the body gets affected by this as well. He's taking too many fucking punches in the head, and as we all know, if you take that many blows, it's going to change your mentality and your personality as well. I would not be surprised if that's part of the reason why he's that fucking delusional about continuing the fight. And also the fact that he doesn't really have anything else in his life, I don't think he's really educated. I don't think he's ever had any other business interests apart from opening up a gym maybe in Hawaii and maybe teaching a bit of BJJ, but that's all he's ever done. As a kid, he was always a fighter. In his youth, he was always a fighter. As an adult, he was a fighter. He just doesn't know how to stop. But I do agree with you, man. I think he could do a lot for the BJJ community. Participate in tournaments, seminars, you name it. And I think that's a way better path to take than continuing down this road. So, let's move on. So we have a couple of more events to review, and then we finally fucking wrapped everything up. I think we're going almost 1.5 hours strong on this one. This is one that you wanted to talk about, Joe. We had Michael Chiesa against Kevin Lee. Let's get into it.
Just move on. Kevin Lee just destroyed him.
It was a great build-up, though, wasn't it? Don't talk about my mom.
Don't ever talk about my mom, bro. Don't ever talk about my mom. Man, Kevin Lee is the biggest. He's the biggest Conor McGregor impersonator ever, man. If there's a video on YouTube where it just compares everything that Conor or Kevin does in comparison to Conor, and it's literally word for word and outfit for outfit. Man. It's ridiculous.
Go on.
No, I was going to say just get Lee in with a top 5 guy now.
What do you guys think of him? I mean, do you think that this was just, a stylistic matchup that kind of favored him, so he got the win? or does he have the potential to really get up there with the elites? His ground game is pretty decent, right?
Yeah, he is. Honestly, I don't know much about Kevin Lee, man. The only thing that I really remember him is getting knocked out by a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu specialist, so I'm the wrong person to ask.
Yeah, I think his striking does have a lot of holes, and probably the day that he, fights somebody again that can stuff the takedown and land some punches, he's probably going to be in trouble. But I like the way he looked against Chiesa. I mean, Chiesa, say what you want, he is a decent grappler, and he controlled him very well. He sweeped him a couple of times with a few beautiful butterfly hooks, right, Joe Morgan? Yeah, that was a beautiful fucking sweep. And then he just controlled him from the back and sunk that fucking choke in. I do want to get your take on the stoppage, Joe. Did you think that was legit? I mean, you've been choked out quite a few times now, I think.
Oh, many times. Today even. Many times. No, it was obviously like Chiesa was full of shit. Like when the hands drop like that, it's like what are you going to... So basically, for guys who didn't see it, Lee's got in... He's got his hooks in and he's got a rear naked choke on, and Lee's trying to fight it, and then Chiesa's trying to fight it, and then Chiesa's hands sort of just drop down to his waist, and then he pulls them apart. The ref jumps in, Chiesa springs up like, "Oh, I was fine, I was fighting the hands," but there's nothing you can do with your hands down by your waist to fight a choke. Your neck muscles are not that strong to withstand two people's hands closing in on them. You have to either try and buck yourself out using your hips, or you've got to fight the hands and get a little airspace around your neck to give you some time. There's nothing you can do with your hands down by your sides, just sitting there. Like the only realistic thing, if I don't know who was the ref, was it Mazzagatti?
Yeah.
Yeah, if he hadn't have jumped in, he would have just been put to sleep.
Yeah, and his whole defense was moronic. What Chiesa said, he's exactly what you just alluded to. His neck. He said he was defending with his neck muscles, and there was so much. Yeah, that's literally what he said, and there was ample time in that round, so it wasn't like there was 4 seconds left, and that was his defense. There was, I think, like a minute and a half left, roughly, so he was going to get put to sleep.
Yeah.
You know what I thought when I watched it the first time, Joe? I thought he was already going out, because if you look at, again, this is just purely based on visual, right? Because I've never grappled myself. But when I look at, and I've seen, probably thousands of MMA fights by now. Every time I see a guy defending a choke, and when they're about to go out, their hands always start doing some funky stuff.
Yeah, it's like Holly Holm in the Misha Tate fight, where she just punches the air really quickly, doesn't she, before she goes out?
Well, they're going unconscious, right? And what Chiesa had, all of a sudden his hands stopped kind of fighting the choke, and then they kind of I don't know how you do it, but the palms kind of went downward, and his hands were kind of just, they looked a little limp to me. You know what I mean? Like it just didn't look like he was there 100%. It looked to me like he was already going out, and I think that's what the ref thought. The ref thought he was, okay, this guy's going out. Or he's already out.
The only thing that I thought he could have done is if the choke was on like sort of side, like he hadn't got the full like sort of extension around the neck, and it was sort of on sideways, and he was going down to try and get the hooks out, to try and get the feet off his hips. But from when you look at it, the choke is in perfectly. You can see that the tip of the elbow is right underneath the chin. He's clasped. He's got his other hand up around the back of his head. It's like a textbook choke. You can tell that he's squeezing the air out of him, and he's not fighting the hooks with his other hands. They're just lying down at his side. So obviously he was going out, and he should really thank Mazzagatti for saving him from getting put unconscious.
Yeah, there seemed to be a lot of outrage about this stoppage, but I was
ridiculous. There's way more stoppages to get outraged about than that one.
I know, right? That's exactly what I thought as well. I was like, dude, if you have a fucking problem with this, I think the ref was. I'm not saying he's right or he's wrong, but it's a highly understandable stoppage for me. It really isn't that controversial.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at like the Bisping, Silva, and Weidman, Mousasi, all those all those decisions, those are the ones you get annoyed about, not flipping a guy getting choked out just before he actually goes out. And just because he seems to jump out after saying, I'm fine. No. If you were fine, you'd have fought the choke, mate. You wouldn't have just put your hands by your side.
Yeah, agreed. Then on also the undercard of that fight, it brings me to another fighter that I kind of want to touch on a little bit, and that's Johnny Hendricks. And this is, another massive fucking downfall of a extremely talented mixed martial artist that was a champion, that was probably, one of the most feared guys in the division, and all of a sudden his career just took a turn for the worse, and he started missing weight a lot, he looked bad, his whole motivation and will to compete just seems to be kind of gone. I don't really know what it is. I don't know whether it's he's shot or whether he doesn't want it anymore, or the game just kind of passed him by. But during GSP era, Johnny Hendricks was fucking incredible. I mean, this is an elite level wrestler with fucking dynamite in his hands. That left hand, the way he's knocked out guys like John Fitch. I mean, it's just explosive, man. Very, very devastating puncher. Extremely dominant wrestler. I mean, he won that GSP fight.
Oh, yeah.
GSP,
I've actually watched that back quite a few times. I don't know how anyone can give that to GSP, that fight. I know you shouldn't ever look at the damage done after a fight, but GSP's face is just mangled after that fight from those left hands, and he looks like. Obviously, I didn't really look into what Hendricks was about. I didn't realize he was this big wrestler, but I would have thought he was a pure striker just from that fight. I would have thought he's some boxing guy that's come in and just ruined this wrestler, because his striking in that fight was insane.
You're talking about a guy that's basically stood toe to toe with Robbie Lawler for 10 rounds and never even got dropped. Correct me if I'm wrong, Lim. So he had also an incredible chin. He was a talented striker. He was not just a brute, that just threw the left hand. There was a lot of technique. And especially, just looking at, I know people will obviously say, oh, he's not a good boxer or whatever, but for MMA, he was a very, very solid striker. I don't think he had a lot of holes in his game, man. I don't know. It's really, really strange the way this guy just suddenly declined.
Well, he obviously got popped, didn't he? For something, didn't he?
Did he? What did he get popped for?
Well, I think he got popped after the GSP fight, didn't he?
Not straight after. It might have been after that. Let me double check. Do you remember Lim? I don't remember him getting popped. Not for steroids, maybe, but let me double check. I know he missed weight a lot. I mean, that was the one thing that he wasn't very disciplined on.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things, again, where we not boil it down, but it factors in just the weight classes in the sport are just so far and apart. Fighting from 170 to 185, there really is no middle ground. And Hendricks, to me, is probably one of the most well-rounded fighters, especially in his prime. He was always light on his feet. He was always bouncy. He threw good leg kicks, too. And especially in that first Robbie fight, he was fucking Robbie up with those leg kicks. And Robbie could barely walk in that fight. So I think Hendricks at his prime was another one of those guys who was like an elite level dude, kind of like RDA when he was back in his prime. So, Hendricks.
I don't think he did get popped. I think I got confused about. I read some stuff about he refused to do the drug testing GSP wanted to do before the fight.
Yeah. You're right. There was some controversy around that. Correct.
And he just really is. I don't even know if discipline is the right word. I just think he just has an eating issue, and he's documented in the past where he just can't stop eating. If you eat something that's appetizing, he just can't put it down. So it's bad, man. I know that sounds kind of fucked up, but it's true. So. But yeah. I don't know how did we get to talking about Johnny Hendricks again? Did he?
Because on the KSL Lee card, he got KO'd for the first time by Tim Boach, right? So and that was even at a catch weight of 188 pounds.
Yeah, he missed it for middleweight, didn't he?
Yeah,
he was over by 2 pounds. So
fucking
cool,
ridiculous.
Man. Did we talk about UFC 213?
I'm about to get to that, man. We have one other fight before that. We had Justin Gaethje against Michael Johnson in the Tough Redemption finale, which was a fucking shootout.
You remember I told you I met Justin Gaethje so there's a Roy Jones Jr. Boxing Academy in Vegas, and I used to, whenever I go to Vegas, I go train over there, and Gaethje just started training with one of the head trainers over there, Coach. I think Gilbert Hernandez, and he looked good, and I had no idea who he was. I think this was his first fight in the UFC, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, and I was just like, who is this guy? Like, he's fucking huge for the weight. He's super light on his feet, and he's explosive. And that was just a fucking mental fight, man. He's just the guy is just so goddamn tough, and he can talk too, man. Like, I know he kind of sounds like a hillbilly, but he's entertaining, and he's definitely a crowd favorite, man. And I think him versus Eddie is a pretty good stylistic matchup in terms of getting the fans hyped, because this guy's just like a fucking wild brawler, man, who just does not give a fuck. So yeah. He's a beast. I like this a lot.
He really does not care what happens to his own health, which is both very entertaining and quite scary at the same time for both him and his opponents. It's like he does not. He really does not care. But one thing I do, worry about with him in terms of his stand-up is he stands very upright, Lim. His stance is very straight up in the air. His chin is right there for the taking. I mean, he might get away with this now, but I think in 2 or 3 fights, if he keeps having these shootouts, it's going to crack at one point, and I don't know if there's a point of return after that for him. He needs to tuck that chin a little bit, man. It's really, really fucking straight up. He almost has that weird BJ Penn stance that he was doing later on in his career. Like, man, Johnson could have put him away so many times, but it's like you said, it was just a mental fight with sheer will where he broke Johnson. But when he fights maybe somebody like Eddie, I don't know how you can compare their power, but Eddie's got some pop as well, man. I mean, look what he did to RDA. I don't know how Gaethje's going to react when Eddie lands one of these fucking wild hooks on him, man.
I know it's a bit on a tangent, but don't you just love those fights where it's one guy just beats the other guy, but just mentally outlasting him? And
I love it.
I do like a quick little spark out, or like one of those highlight reel spinning back fists or whatever. But those fights where it's like it's in the trenches, it's 50-50, and one guy just like takes over the fight, they're just so satisfying to watch, because it's like this guy is obviously putting. You can see the hours that they put in the gym or on the hills just in that fight, because just coming through one of that sort of contest where it's there for the taking, 50-50, and then one of the guys just gets on top, just like Gaethje did in that fight. It's just like, I love those finishes, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, another one that comes to mind is the RDA versus Pettis fight, right? I mean, I love those type of drag out fucking, I mean, you can't even call it a war, because at the end of the day, they're a little bit one-sided, but I love that, like you say, when somebody's will gets broken.
Yeah,
it's such an intense emotional experience for me as well to watch. I truly love it.
Like they break them mentally before they finish them off.
Yeah, quite incredible, man. I'm very pumped for Justin Gaethje, man, that he's now entered the UFC. I think the matchmakers as well have understood what he's about, and they're giving him guys that are both vulnerable and wild at the same time. So Eddie Alvarez is a perfect matchup. I hope Eddie has a little bit left in that chin of his, man, because this is gonna be another.
I don't think I pick Gaethje to win that fight.
He might get knocked out very quickly. Yeah, I don't know.
His recovery skills are probably better at this point, just by the fact that he hasn't fought as many fights as Eddie has. So, but yeah. Anyways, UFC 213. Obviously, this card has been just muddled with so many just different kind of circumstances, extenuating circumstances, whether it be fights being called off due to health concerns, with Cody obviously having that back issue, with the main event being dropped.
Why did Nunes pull out from that card then?
Because she felt sick. It was kind of like the Khabib situation all over again, but it was her being sick.
Oh, it was a weight cut issue, was it?
They're not 100% sure, but the doctors actually medically approved her to fight, which was a strange thing, which I think also is another side issue in that, Dana actually brought all this to attention, which is kind of puzzling as to why you would just put your fighter under the bus like that. I think Dana clearly has favor.
Pissed off, wasn't he?
Yeah, and yeah, Dana's not very, I don't think he's the most intelligent guy when it comes to dealing with these kind of like crisis situations. So, it seems like she could have fought, so she was medically approved to fight, but she just didn't feel like she was in her optimal shape to fight Shevchenko or Sibyl. I don't know what her name is, but anyways, the card wasn't that good to begin with, honestly, for like a international fight week card, and for that to be kind of that kind of stature was disappointing. But what can we say? I think Robert Whittaker is one guy who's definitely proved me wrong. I thought he was a guy who was probably better served at 170 just because he's a little bit smaller than a lot of these 185ers, but he's on just as impressive as a streak as anybody right now. And he might not have like the duration of wins as some of these other guys, but his opposition is freakish, man. I mean, he just fucking beat Yoel with a fucking knee injury too. Like we could barely like stand upright after that second round, and for him to pull that off is fucking amazing. And then for him, obviously Jacare before. I mean, talk about two killers, man. You can argue that the top 5 at 185 are the most talented guys at that weight division, like compared to any other weight division like around right now. So for him to be on that run is pretty amazing. And if he fights Bisping, which I think he will, I mean, I'm sorry, Joe, but I think this is Whittaker's division to run for quite some time.
Fuck you, buddy. Fuck you, buddy.
You gotta love Bisping's trash talk, man. But I do, yeah, man. Whittaker is quite a phenomenon, man. He's just grown so much as a fighter. He seems to have pretty good corner advice as well, man. They stuck to a very committed game plan. He's definitely got a lot of physical talent as well. He's a good striker. Takedown defense against Romero was fucking fantastic, man. I mean, you're talking about another Olympian, and he stuffed, I think, almost every takedown, right? I mean, quite a coming out party for Whittaker, man. And he's a nice guy too, man. So I was happy to see him do so well. I just want to touch quickly on what you said about Dana, Lim. And yeah, I found that quite disgraceful as well. Obviously, we don't know the intricacies of what happened, with Nunez, but to just go to the media and just throw your own champion under the fucking bus. I really don't understand it. I really don't. Like, the UFC is so vindictive when it comes to this shit. And even John Jones touched upon it as well, right? And even though with John, I kind of understand it because he's a very big fuck up. But he also said, like, Dana, he kind of shows his true colors. Once things don't really go his way, he just starts lashing out. And then it has no benefit, like, this is your goddamn fucking champion. And so, you're never going to headline a card again. Well, you said the same thing about John Jones, motherfucker, and look at him now. He's in the biggest fight of the year, headline.
He's just too emotional, Dana. He gets bad news, and because he's so egotistical as well, and he wants to get in front of a camera and in front of an interview, he'll just immediately go and say something. Like, he needs to have a guy behind him saying, hold on a sec, mate, just calm down, give yourself an hour, and then go talk to the media. They don't need to know what your intense, honest thoughts are about this situation, because it's not going to help anything to do with the company.
Yeah, but to be fair, though, that's also what makes Dana awesome, right? So it goes both ways, but I agree with you guys 100%. That's fucking illegal. Dana to me, I always have a soft spot for Dana. I think he's really funny, and like the passion that he exudes, like when he was introducing Conor in those boxing press conferences, were hilarious, man.
I didn't like that at all. I thought that was so corny, dude.
Embarrassing.
Why was he yelling like that?
Yeah, it's Dana, man. I don't know.
I thought he was gonna fucking explode full of fucking McDonald's as a fat bastard.
Conor McGregor.
Were there any other cards or any other fights on that 213 card?
There were other fights. I don't think there were any other really memorable fight. We had Damian Maia against what was his name? Masvidal, right, on that card as well.
Was it?
No, sorry, I'm spacing out. It wasn't. It was Overeem against Verdum. We had Pettis against Jim Miller.
Fuck that. Let's talk. Masvidal's another guy that I was really high on.
They shouldn't have stuck him in with Maia. They should have just let Maia wait it out and put Masvidal in with like Lawless. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Lawless Cerrone's obviously a sick fight. Just like another top 6 welterweight or something.
Didn't Masvidal ask for that fight?
I know, he's a fucking idiot. Like, why are you fighting Maia? Like, just let Maia fight Woodley and then fight Maia for the belt.
Yeah, because Masvidal is somebody that you can actually build up and make a big draw. Well, not a big draw necessarily, but he's definitely an entertaining dude, man. And the way that he just completely obliterated Cowboy was pretty cool to watch. But yeah, that's pretty much sums it up, man. I think. We
done a good job there, boys.
Yeah.
One thing, we also had the decline of Travis Brown. Well, the downfall of Travis Brown on that card as well, where he just got fucking iced again by that Olinik or Eliznik. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but he got destroyed once again. I mean, talk about the fucking Targaryen curse, man. Jesus Christ.
Targaryen.
What the
fuck? Anyway. And then the final most recent card was Weidman versus Gastelum. I was so happy that, like you said, my boy finally got the win again. Even though it was against a smaller guy, this was a competitive fight. We can't say afterwards, like, oh, Gastelum's too small and yada, yada, yada. We thought going in that Gastelum was a live dog. So I think it was actually...
I think it goes both ways. I think they're not mutually exclusive. So what I mean by that is I think you can say that we thought Kelvin was going to be a live dog because of Chris's, I think, progressive kind of downfall, not downfall, but deterioration as a fighter. But also you can still say retroactively that he was fighting a smaller guy. I think Kelvin is just one of those fighters who's, again, in a no man's land where he should be fighting at 170 optimally, but obviously he has issues making that weight. So he's fighting at a weight class where guys are just towering over him, man. And it's not like he's even in shape. I mean, I know looks isn't everything, but like the guy has no definition whatsoever at that weight class. So, I mean, it's a good win for Weidman because Kelvin is a talented motherfucker. So by no means am I trying to say that, Weidman didn't beat a good opponent, but, is he able to beat the top 5 at that weight class? That's what I want to know.
And that's what we're going to find out. So,
who's he going to fight though? Like all these names are kind of taken up with obviously the Moose going to Bellator. Luke is fighting some other.
The Moose. I love that.
I don't know who the fuck Luke is fighting. He's fighting some random dude.
Luke's such a bitch.
Don't hate on my boy, man. I love Luke. So we got Luke, obviously Yoel. Yeah, maybe he fights Yoel in a rematch, but what does that do? I mean, Yoel just lost. Whitaker's fighting for the title. And
I think he fights.
Who does he fight?
I think he could fight Bisping, because if you think about it, they're all out at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. They're already talking about that fight of happening.
I know they're I wouldn't mind it that much because at least Weidman's got the history, like the resume.
Yeah, but the dude is 1-4 or what's his record in his past 4 fights? 1-3, like.
Yeah, but it's against the top 5. You can't really. Yeah, I get your point, Lim. But on the other hand, it's fucking Chris Weidman. Bisping also got the shot in the same way. He also fought.
Yeah, but
he fought Silva, and he was like 9th or something, wasn't he?
Yeah, Bisping also got the shot against Luke the same way. So. And that was probably a worse ranking.
Huge asterisk, though. The reason why he fought him was because he fought on 2 weeks' notice.
Well, Whitaker has a blown out knee, so what can you do?
I understand, but if people were presented that fight as if like that was the fight from the beginning, it would have been an outrage. So
do you think it should be Bisping against Gay Jesus?
No, you guys bring up a good counter argument because I don't have a fight that actually makes sense because I completely forgot that Whitaker is hurt. So, yeah, I mean, there is just a huge vacancy right now. But for me, it would be a little bit awkward to reward Chris with that fight after beating Gastelum.
Yeah, but I think what they're going to do is give GSP one more run at Bisping, and if he pulls out again or something happens,
it's off the table, though. It's off the table.
Yeah, is it? No, is it?
Exactly. Like, can we believe Dana? Like, the guy's alive.
Obviously,
Dana loves a pound note, as Eddie would say. He'll take GSP back in a heartbeat. If George turns around tomorrow and calls Dana up and goes, Dana,
I want to fight.
The rhythm.
I want to fight. That whole GSP situation is one of the weirdest things I think I've ever encountered. And like as my experience watching the sport, I mean, they had a fucking press conference in July as if this fight was going to happen.
And they didn't even sign it, did they?
It's like, what the fuck was that? Like, Bisping was drunk and George was talking shit. I was like, what is this shit, man? And now they're not going to, it's off the table, but you're willing to put GSP in there against the winner of T Wood versus Maia? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's very, very strange, man. I really don't understand that. I mean, they had some momentum with GSP announcing his comeback, but now it's just kind of faded away, and they're not capitalizing on it, man. It's very, very weird. I mean, they need a guy like GSP. It's not like they have fucking stars lined up, to make some goddamn money. So, yeah.
Let's get to this week.
Yeah, man. So we've wrapped up every fucking fight that's taken place in the last half year. Well done, boys. I had a couple of topics as well that maybe we could talk about. We can do that either after we preview this week or before. You guys can choose. Because there's a couple of little, news and notes that also went on that are quite interesting to talk about. So let me know, guys. What do you want to do? You want to preview first or discuss a little bit of other things?
Do you want to segue? Because we've done a lot of fights.
Yeah, we can do that. Let's talk a little bit about the business, huh? Let's talk a little bit about the business of MMA.
The business, bro.
Business, bro. It's just
I didn't go to school for business, bro. But like, come on, if you're like Ari and WME IMG, like that's just not good business, bro. Like, that's not good business, B. Like, good douche. Good douche.
I do want to be a little bit of an Ariel Helwani here and bring up the topic of fighters, becoming free agents and choosing to go outside of the UFC. And I want to get your take on this because it seems to me that there's a trend recently, obviously, of, top 5, top 10 level guys choosing to get out, which has never really happened before. And you've already mentioned the Moose going to Bellator. I mean, it is quite an interesting development, isn't it, Lim?
It is, but the only issue is that once they go to Bellator, they have nobody to fucking fight. And that's the reason why, like, it doesn't do much for me at all. Like, especially with Rory. It's like, I haven't thought twice about Rory ever since he moved. Who the fuck is Moose going to fight when he fights over at Bellator? And trust me, like, to me, the Bellator guys are okay. Like, Chandler, obviously, is a badass motherfucker at 55, but like, if they really want to make a name for themselves, they have to be self-sustaining, and they just aren't at this point, in my opinion. So it has really no bearing on me in terms of like how I view the UFC in comparison to Bellator. Like, that Bellator card that happened in MSG was like, I turned that shit off for like 2. I was like, fuck this.
It was terrible, man. It was fucking terrible. Yeah. I mean, that was.
But they did. However, dude, they do have our boy Dylan Dennis, who's a badass in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, who's obviously Connor's protege. So I might have to follow, our boy Double D.
You seen his new platinum haircut?
Oh, so sick, bro.
Yeah, you're right, Lim. The weird thing is, like, I think Musashi signed like a 6-fight deal or something with Bellator, if I read that correctly. I mean, again, 6 fights. I don't know who the fuck he's gonna face. I mean, they're gonna have to like kind of shuffle the deck a little bit and move up and down in divisions. And the Moose is probably down for that shit. But I'm very disappointed from a competitive standpoint. I love fucking Gegard Musashi. He's also from my home country. I've actually met him at a rave in the Netherlands as well. He's a cool guy. I don't know, man. I really, really like him, and he continued to just grow as well. He was in a position to get a title shot, whether it's in 1 fight or 2 fights or maybe immediate looking at what happened with the division, and then he chooses to just exit based on money. I get it. I don't know how much the pay difference is. I get it if he's choosing the money, but from a fan's point of view, it really is quite sad, man. But again, if this is just the beginning and we get more and more fighters doing the same, we might end up with a bit more of a balance, and some decent top fives in Bellator in a few divisions. Then I don't mind.
Can I say something? Obviously, I listen to the MMA Beat every week.
Great show. The Wags?
Yeah.
Oh, the Wags.
I fucking love Mindenhall. I think he's the boy.
You know what I'm saying?
He's the douche.
You know what I'm saying?
But anyway, they always go on that show about, they do like dick ride Bellator a little bit. They're usually honest on most things, but they do love to hype up Bellator. I think because Helwani knows that Dana probably hates it when he talks about Bellator. But anyway, they always say how it's great for the MMA and it's good for the UFC with Bellator having a strong number 2. I think that's complete bollocks. Because if you get a strong number 2, then you're going to get guys going over there that you really want to fight. Because at the moment it's okay, because usually you just got your freak show guys or the guys just starting out in their careers. You haven't got anyone decent, and any of the light heavyweights that are decent are boring as shit, so you don't really want to watch them. I just don't understand how it's good for MMA if you have a strong competitor to the UFC. The whole reason people started watching MMA was because they could match the best against the best all the time and get awesome fights every week, and that's only happening with all the guys under one stable. So I think it's not good at all for Bellator to do well for MMA. It's better if they just die off and all the guys over there that are of any use just go and re-sign with the UFC.
But you're talking from a fan's perspective, right? I mean, they mostly talk from a financial perspective for the fighters.
But why? Are they fighters? No,
it's because they're fucking wannabe financial journalists who think they're more important than they are, which is kind of the reason why I don't like Ariel sometimes, is because he thinks he's some kind of Harvard instituted
but this is bollocks though, because that argument that fighters aren't going to get as well paid if there's just one guy paying them. No, if fighters were actually organised and got themselves in a union, they'd have a hell of a lot more power, because they'd only have one organisation that they could fight under, and vice versa. The UFC have got all their guys under one organisation. So if they lose them, that they haven't got any other fighters that they can go to, and that's how you negotiate higher pay.
Which is entirely valid, Joe, but the problem is fighters are extremely fucking selfish, and let's face it, they're just not very smart people. I think there's only maybe 10 guys in the UFC that I think would have the intelligence to pull something like that off. And for some reason, we had that weird-ass fucking union or organization that came out with Bjorn, and that was both very awkward and also completely useless at the same time, because it just vanished and never came back.
Well, yeah, it was
it would be great for them to unionize. I know Dana that's his worst nightmare, being a fucking Republican, but they do need to have some sort of check on the UFC as an institution, as the only institution that will pay the fighters if you're a UFC fighter. The way that they screwed them over with the Reebok deal, that should never have fucking been allowed. That deal is the whole reason why you actually need to just get organised into a union, because there's no doubt that the fighters have been absolutely shafted on that.
Fucking hell. Well, not only the fighters, the fans as well. Horrible merchandise. Jesus Christ.
Have you seen some of the fight posters this year? Have been absolutely horrendous. The one for Aldo Holloway, where it was just the two fighters, but they just decided to put one upside down.
I am not going to lie, though. I must say, shamefully admit that I did buy some Reebok Conor McGregor gear. I just couldn't help myself. I got a little bit too horned for our boy, so I made the guilty purchase. But yeah, it's been awful. I mean, their pay rates are insane. I think it's on a tiered structure where the highest you can get paid is either $50,000 or $100,000 per fight based on your championship status. But if not, like I think Gus made like $5,000 in sponsorship money when he fought Teixeira, and these are guys who oftentimes made more money from the sponsorship than the actual fight purses themselves. So, I mean, it's incredible, and that's the main reason why I think a lot of the guys are moving over to Bellator. I know that's the reason why Rory left, and also who's that other? Matt Mitrione said he used to make like $50,000 to $100,000 under sponsorships, when in Reebok he only gets paid $2,500 to $5,000. So
that is insane that they were allowed to do that, and the more fighters think a cup of shit.
Yeah.
My biggest issue with Reebok is that they don't give a fuck about MMA. Like, ever since the introduction of it, they had, fighters' names spelled out wrong. The outfits are fucking terrible with these stupid flags, and they do it by country, and it's all the same uniform, and the uniform doesn't even look good. Like, I know MMA merchandise in the past always used to be a little bit cringy, there was always like skulls and flames, and you had Tap Out and Affliction and all of that. But fuck it, that was part of it. That was what made MMA a little bit great as well at the same time. I liked that bro aspect of it, man. I liked it, and
I like those like the iconic John Jones shorts where he's wearing like the little skirty thing.
Oh yeah, that's cool, man.
They're actually bringing that back.
There's a bit of you're allowing a bit of creativity.
They made promises. They promised to tailor, their merchandise. Reebok did according to every fighter's need. They'd customize it so it would represent the fighter. How long has it been now since we've had this deal? 1.5 years? 2 years? Well, how long has it been? They haven't done shit. It's the same fucking outfit, the same stupid white shirt with the logo across and the little, flag on the shoulder. It's just fucking horrendous, man. What is this? It hasn't done anything for the sport. It hasn't grown the brand. These shirts go for like $120 in the fucking shop. It's just fucking stupid. It really, really is disgraceful, and I cannot fucking believe that the UFC is still going with this, man. And the most disgraceful part of it all is that they still have like certain sponsors that they've banned from the fighters. They still have those sponsors like in the octagon.
Yeah, so Monster.
Energy. Monster. Yeah, and certain fighters still carry Monster, right? There's a select number of fighters. I think maybe Cowboy or a couple of guys still have Monster.
Yeah.
It really, really is sad, man. They have. I mean, for such a big brand, you have such an opportunity to create a sick merchandise line, and just rack up sales from that, man. Look at the WWE, what they've done with the brand. They're a merchandise machine, and the UFC has the chance to do the same, and this is what they do with it. I mean,
that's just not good business, bro.
It's greed, bro.
Well, it's not greed. If you wanted to make some money, then capitalize on it. When you're teaming up with a brand like Reebok, use their fucking capabilities. It's just.
Or just stick a tax, or just let the fighters get their own stuff, but just stick a little tax on it.
Yeah, but even the product is just shite. Well,
there's no doubting the aesthetic of it. It's just
it's just horrible.
Like,
man.
Who likes Reebok anyway? If it was Nike or Adidas. Like Reebok's down there with fucking like Umbro and Mizuno and these sort of brands.
But you know what the thing is? Like Tap Out used to be kind of the UFC's brand, even though they were not associated directly financially with the UFC, except for sponsorship. It wasn't. It wasn't like the UFC were promoting Tap Out or whatever. It wasn't directly linked like it is now, like it was the official uniform. But you had the Tap Out guys always sitting ringside. They always put a camera in their face. They used to have interviews with them. They always, used to splatter the logo all over the place. That brand grew so much because of the UFC. And all those bros that love going to fucking fights, with the Just Bleed guys, that from Sherdog. Like, dude, they all love Tap Out, dude, but they don't love fucking Reebok. It sucks.
The greatest Sherdog GIF is when they highlight those dudes in the stand shadowboxing, and then they put that alongside with Ronda.
Yeah. She comes in at the end. So good.
No, but yeah, I agree. Can you imagine if if they did like a collaboration with Under Armour, like sales would be awesome. Like the gear would be so sick.
Yeah.
You know, all the compression gear, like hoodies and bags and all this other type of shit. But just the Reebok one is just so standard, and the fabric is absolute horseshit, man. Like, and here in the States, you can go to like a Reebok outlet store, and you just touch the product and what the feel is like, you know, the elasticity and whatnot, and just product, just the quality is just crap. So I'm shocked that there hasn't been more kind of like in the octagon type of incidents where, you know, different types of shorts or bras or whatever get ripped just because the quality of the merchandise is so poor. But I don't know. I think it's not better obviously than the previous era, but you know, I do think there has to be a push for uniformity, but obviously not when it's just uniform garbage, you know. So I don't know.
I don't think there should be a push for that at all. I think the whole thing that makes fighters unique as opposed to teams is how individual they are, how unique they are. You know, like why would you make everybody look the same? Like it's all part of the fucking history. You know, you had Chuck Liddell with the fucking blue eye shirts, Tito with his crappy punishment gear, you know, with the flames on everywhere. Like that was part of the game, man. Like you can't take that shit away. I think it's fucking blasphemy in terms of the fight game.
Like they made the walkouts are so generic now as well. Like the most they can do is have a flag around them.
Yeah,
like, that's one thing that boxing shits on MMA is just the theatricality element.
Dude, they fined Cerrone for putting a patch of a little flag on his uniform. That's kind of his lucky charm that he got from his grandmother or something like that. I mean, how ridiculous is this? Really?
This is shit. It's
like Nazi Germany in the 1940s.
Anyway, man, I think we've ranted enough about this. I had a couple of other points as well. You know, guys like Ally Kenta, Demetrius Johnson. There's just an overall trend of guys that are just not satisfied with their current situation. So I don't know, guys. Let's move on to the preview because we got about. You know, we've got less than an hour left.
What?
Well, we've been on for like 2 hours and a little bit, so I don't want Cam to get very upset. Let's start with the preview, man. Let's go bottom up. And let's start with an absolute insane fucking war. We got Robbie. What?
Is Cam on the line?
I'm not quite sure. I think he might still be chilling because he knows we're going to go on for a long time.
He's listening back there, the closet MMA fan. He doesn't want to admit it.
Cam, if you want to say something, now's the time, buddy.
Oh, he is actually there. He's listening in. Yeah. Let's start with the ruthless one. The long-awaited comeback.
I just want to pay homage to my boy Robbie. UFC 189 was the first UFC fight I've ever been to. Well, it's not the first, actually. I used to go to a couple of like old UFC cards, like back in Anaheim when they used to have that shit back in the day. But it was my first reintroduction to UFC. Obviously, I was on the Conor hype train, but that fight against Rory is like, to me, it was like what it must have felt like to watch the Gladiator era, like watching two guys just fight to the death in Rome back in, you know, the Gladiator days. Like I felt like I was viewing something that like I wasn't worthy of watching, and going to the fifth round and just looking at Rory's face and Robbie's lip falling apart and just seeing these guys go at it for.
Is that 25. The one where his lip just is like?
Yeah, just ripped off. It just fucking peeled off entirely, and you could see it. Like it was just.
Man,
I don't know what the fuck I was watching, and then Rory's nose was obviously broken. Like it was shattered into pieces, and blood was just coming out of like both of his eyes. He was bleeding everywhere. The fucking octagon, like I could smell the blood because I had good seats, but you could like smell like I don't know if it was the blood I was smelling, but it was fresh. Like you could actually see the blood on the mat, and I couldn't believe what I was watching. I was just like, this is like subhuman almost, you know? Like this is the argument against the UFC becoming a mainstream sport, is like people just don't have the stomach for this. And I actually remember there was a lady that I met on that night who flew over from Oklahoma to watch the fight, and she couldn't stomach it. Like she left, honestly. And she came back eventually, but she left in like the middle of the fourth round just because it became too gruesome. And it's like a very special thing.
Mate, it's funny you actually say that, because when I was first getting into it, someone was like, "Oh, you gotta watch this fight, Lawler Condit. Find it on YouTube, man. It was amazing." And I actually watched that and was just like, "Fuck, this might be too heavy for me? This sort of stuff." Like, it was almost uncomfortable.
Like, that was an incredible fight, but that wasn't nearly as
brutal as the McDonald fight.
Yeah, McDonald fight. Yeah, and I just have so much respect for Robbie. I mean, to cut it short, I've always had a fascination with human beings who can put their bodies through the extremes, and this just like it made me like just so humbled and appreciative of what these guys went through. And that was probably also the best post-fight speech I've ever heard in my life, when Robbie was like, "I keep coming back just to knock motherfuckers out." And I still get chills just thinking about that night, man. And I think Robbie, I don't know if he's done. I mean, I think it's better to get knocked out the way he did against T-Wood than it is to go through a sustained beating. But this fight can be an incredible fight, but it also can be like a really depressing moment for me. Like, if I watch just Robbie just kind of get obliterated in a way that I know he shouldn't, like, that would make me very, very sad.
Lynn, do you remember that moment after, I think it was after the fourth round ended, where he just spat blood onto the canvas and just gave Rory the death stare? I mean, Jesus Christ, man. He is an intense motherfucker. What a guy.
And also, just the last minute of the second Hendricks fight also is probably my favorite minute of combat watching, when he fights Hendricks, and he just, like, the look in his eyes is like, it's round 5, he just fought 24 minutes, and he just wants to fucking kill Johnny Hendricks. Like, it's a pretty captivating thing to watch. And I mean, let alone, we didn't even talk about the Condit fight. I mean, he's just a fucking, like, I just think there's certain people that are cut from a different cloth. You know, like, there's just some fighters who are meant to fight, some fighters who are just meant to just put themselves through, like, agony and misery, and he's one of them. So
I don't even.
He's a pure fighter. He's a pure fighter, and
he doesn't even see it as that, though. He sees it as like, this is what I'm meant to do.
Yeah, I love special cat.
Go on.
No, he's just a special human being, and he's goddamn, he's been through so many wars. And what is he, like, almost 40 now? Like, was he 37, 38 years old?
I actually don't know. Let me just quickly check that, because I don't think he's as old as we think he is. He's been fighting from a very young age.
You fought fucking Nick Diaz like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Let me check.
So Robbie's in a curious state too. I think
35.
Yeah, he's not too old, but he's like.
Right.
He's one knockout away from really
also
calling it today.
Yeah. So he trains with Henry Hoof now, and I know he used to train over at an American Top Team over there in Coconut Creek, Florida, with Joanna and all those other guys. But so this is kind of like I think a pretty delicate period in his career. So, like, I wouldn't be surprised, honestly. Like, I hate to say it, but I wouldn't be surprised if Robbie kind of, like, stumbles in this fight and quits, because I think Robbie's a better fighter than Cowboy, and especially Robbie being the bigger guy. And honestly, I think Robbie, like, this is a perfect stylistic matchup. These are both guys who do things very similar to one another. Cowboy is obviously a better kicker, especially at range, but I do think Robbie has more devastating hands. He has more power than Cowboy does. So this fight, to me, is all about range and who controls that distance. If Robbie can close that distance and fight in range to land his combinations with his hands, I think he wins this fight pretty comfortably. But if he's kind of like at a longer distance where Cowboy can catch him with one of those kicks like he did against the Brown, not Marcus Brown, what am I saying? Who's the Brown, when he fought over
Matt Brown, the Immortal.
The Immortal one, yeah. If Cowboy can manage the distance at that range, it would favor him. But I don't know, man. My heart says Robbie, but my brain says Cowboy, just because it might be Robbie's time, man.
You know what the thing is? I actually think that the whole story that you just explained actually applies to Cowboy as well. I think Cowboy has also been through a shitload of fights. He's also been stopped. He's I mean, how much how much wear and tear do both of these guys have? I think they're both at this kind of crossroads in their career. I know Cowboys take a little bit of a break, just like Robbie, but I think his chin is a question mark as well at this point, man. I wouldn't be surprised if Robbie fucking clocks him with a left or a right and he just goes out. I wouldn't be surprised either. He's fighting a guy who's naturally much bigger than him. You know, I think there's question marks on both ends, man. Really, I mean, and one thing you can never really say about Cowboy is that he is a UFC championship level guy. You know, he never won the belt. He always kind of choked in the big fights. And Robbie is the opposite. He's a guy that fucking shines under the lights. So, I don't know. Do you guys know what the odds are for this fight by any chance?
No, I don't
I'd imagine they're pretty much dead even.
Yeah, I think that's crazy. I would put Lawler as the favorite, to be honest.
Yeah, I like Lawler as well in this fight, actually. Only because I think I think he can go into those deeper rounds better than Cowboy does. Like, I know, like, Cowboy's won quite a few good decisions. Like, he's obviously beaten Alvarez, and I think, was it Benson Henderson was another one where he took him quite late. But I just think that if Robbie can just take him into, like, the end of the second round, third round, he's just going to get on top of it. And I don't think like either will knock each other out, because I don't know. I can just see a fucking unanimous decision to Lawler here, just getting the win back, because fucking Cowboy's resume is insane. Like, when you think about it, like, he could have the best fucking resume in the UFC currently.
Well, in terms of experience, maybe, but not in terms of wins.
Oh, right. Yeah, but fucking hell, I'll bring it up now. He beat fucking Dennis Seaver when Seaver was half decent. Jeremy Stevens, KJ Noons, Edson. Oh mate, this run here was mad. Fucking Edson Barbosa, Jim Miller, Eddie Alvarez, Miles Jury, Benson Henderson, and John McDessie.
Yeah, that is a pretty crazy run, I must say.
Yeah. That's a crazy run.
Loses to RDA, but comes back and beats Alex Oliveira, Patrick Cote, Rick Story, and then KOs the fuck out of Mac Brown with a highlight reel knockout, and then loses to Masvidal.
Yeah, but he got beat pretty badly against Masvidal.
Yeah,
I know. That's why I just think that Lawler is just probably a bit too big for Cowboy. But the thing is, like, this fight has the potential to suck.
Yeah. Well, to me, like, I honestly, I don't find too many ways that the fight can suck, but I kind of think it might suck, just because fights that we overhype on paper usually don't come into fruition like we would have expected. But at the same time, even though Robbie is a bigger guy, this is the kind of matchup at 170 where it's actually kind of more prudent for Cowboy, because Robbie's not one of those guys that really uses his size to really overpower or overwhelm his opponents. So, and also, this is a pretty low pressure situation, and I think Cowboy thrives under these kind of situations where he's just there to bang. You know, it's not like the lead up to a championship fight against RDA, like, where the pressure really gets to him. I think this is one of those situations where he's going to be free and loose and just kind of put it on him. So I think it's going to be a good fight, but for some reason,
this is one of those fights they should make 5 rounds, even though it's a non-title fight.
I mean, is this the 4th card? Is this on the prelims, or is it the main? Is it the opening fight of the pay-per-view card?
I think it's the opening fight, if I'm not mistaken. I've got it here as the 4th fight. Let me just double check. It's quite at the bottom of the card, surprisingly.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a stacked card, so
maybe they did that on purpose, just to give them less pressure and just let them bang. You know, just get everybody in the mood. Okay, but what are your official picks then? I think it sounds like me and Joe are going with the ruthless one.
Well, I'm going decision. I think you think you'll finish him.
What about you?
I got Cowboy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Decision?
I don't even no, by stoppage in the 3rd round.
Head kick?
All right. Yep. All right, Chin. Give me the next one.
Sorry, it's actually the 2nd fight on the card. The first one is Jimmy Manua against Volkan Oezdemir, whoever the fuck that might be. The next fight
just quickly, I think I'm fucking shout out to the Lamas night fight, which could be fucking decent.
I hate Ricardo Lamas.
What?
Can't stand that fucking motherfucker. Stupid haircut. I hate his fighting style. Don't like him at all.
He's another black belt in jiu-jitsu.
All right.
Let's go to Christian Justino against Tanya Evinger.
Let's go to current events, Chin.
The cyborg. She's finally here, and she's going to fight somebody who looks a bit like a dyke, but had a pretty cool outfit in the press conference. But Tanya is a come forward, tough lady that loves to brawl and kind of do the little ground and pound thing. But I have a feeling she's just going to run into a couple of bricks that are going to knock her the fuck out. What do you guys think?
Yeah, but you say this, and this is exactly why the UFC is so good to watch, because this is when everyone thinks it's just going to be an absolute steamroller. Evinger will just come out and just plant one on her, and everyone will just lose their minds. This is exactly the same situation like Holm and Rousey.
Yeah, but
I don't think so, man. It's Cyborg, dude. I think Cyborg is a fucking freak. I don't know if you guys...
Yeah, but everyone was saying... This is exactly the same vocabulary people were using to describe Ronda before she just got destroyed. And flipping the UFC has seen a lot of people fucking commit hubris, where they just think they're the big dogs, going in there, arms down, looking to just ruin kids, and then just getting sparked themselves.
But the thing is with Cyborg is she really does have a completely unique type of punching power that no other woman has got in MMA, period. You know, there's nobody that has that sort of power, and it's not even close. You look at the way she hits pads, you look at the way that, you know, heads start snapping back when she connects with punches. She just has a natural power, which is fucking crazy for women's martial arts. I think she's honestly the only one. You know, take away leg kicks, I think she's the only one with like proper concussive power. I don't think even somebody like Holly Holm can do that with her hands. She can do that with her legs, but not with her fucking hands, dude. And
oh, hell no. Holly's feather fisted, man.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Justina is quite incredible with her striking, but people tend to think that she's a one trick pony. She's not.
Isn't
dude.
she a black belt?
She's a fucking black belt in jiu-jitsu as well, man. She just doesn't use it, man.
She's won the IBJJF fucking world championships, mate. As a purple belt, but still.
Yeah. Dude, did you guys listen to Cowboy on Big Brown Breakdown yesterday? I'm being serious. I know, because Cowboy was making a joke how he came across Cyborg, and he was like, holy fuck, like, I'm scared of this bitch. Yeah. And he was like, can you imagine seeing her at a bar? Like, and she's the one who's like defending her boy. Like, I wouldn't want to fuck her up. You know, like she's one of those female fighters that is kind of transcendent in the sense to where physically she fits the part to kind of hang in there with people of similar like size and in weight classes, like when it comes to males, you know, and like she's just a big human being, man. And I can't imagine what's her face. I mean, I know she fights at Invicta, Tanya Evinger, and isn't she a 135er at Invicta?
I think you're right. Yeah.
Right? So, because the thing is, she was supposed to fight Megan Anderson, who is a legitimate 45-pounder at Invicta, but she pussied out. And I think Tanya is just the 35 champion. So, not only is she going against like the more skilled person, but obviously somebody with just such physical advantages over her. So, I don't know.
During the presser, she looked bigger than most guys. She looked bigger than fucking Cormier. I mean, it's insane. She is massive, dude.
Dude, she walks 180 pounds. Like, that's fucking insane. Like, her cut, like, I don't know if you guys seen that documentary on YouTube where she cuts for that fight when she had to make 140, and, like, it's fucking harrowing, man. Like,
yeah, like, it really is crazy. I can't believe the UFC actually tried to get her down in weight even more. I mean, that is outright dangerous. But I am excited to see her, man. I'm definitely excited. Let's go to the co-main event. And we got a very, very interesting matchup. It might not be exciting, in terms of action. But I am really interested to see how this plays out stylistically. I mean, we got our boy T Wood against the grandmaster of jiu-jitsu, which is Damian Maia, the constrictor. I mean, I think the big question here is, can Damian take him down? And if he can, are we underestimating T Wood's ground game that much that he's just going to get strangled? And I know you want to let loose on this one, Joe, so go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say, how much does Maia look like fucking Jaime Lannister?
He does.
I can see the comparison, though. Yeah.
The only question that I have before you go, Joe, is have we ever seen T Wood's takedown defense? Because obviously T Wood is a decorated wrestler, so he wouldn't be in too many situations where he would actually have to stop the takedown. But do we know what his TDD is like?
It was I saw it actually on a graphic. I think it was on Behind the Octagon or something. It's like the second highest in the UFC.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't think has he ever been taken down? I'm not quite sure if he has. Let me Google that for a second.
He's like the stockiest person in the sport, so I would imagine it's pretty hard to take that much.
I don't get how he makes 155, but just 170, but retains all that muscle mass. It's probably because he's so short. Like Maia is so much taller than him. I was shocked about that.
Yeah, which is going to be very hard for him, right? Because he needs to get all that downward momentum to take him down, unless he does it in a clinch and does a trip, which he's pretty crafty with, by the way. So
didn't he get taken down in the McDonald fight?
He might have, but that might have been more just based on pure exhaustion. Because I think Rory was definitely fucking T Wood up in that fight. And another really interesting thing about this fight is that T Wood kind of fucked Maia over in the training camp thing. He gave him like an ultimatum essentially, because obviously Maia fought Masvidal fairly recently. So I think Maia's operating under a 6-week camp, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm really curious to see if that has any kind of impact on his weight and his conditioning.
Yeah, I'm not too worried because we've seen Maia go the distance a lot, and I don't think he's actually that. He doesn't struggle with his cardio.
I don't think he's ever really had a stamina issues.
No.
Plus, he doesn't force his work, right? It's all technique.
Exactly, and because of his jiu-jitsu, the way he actually puts himself on the opponent, they'll tire a hell of a lot quicker than he will.
Oh, so, yeah, there's so much pressure.
This is all just if Maia can get Woodley down, he will win the fight. It's just actually because Woodley is so explosive, and I reckon we haven't even seen it recently. I reckon he's got the most insane scramble if they actually do get down, and he's so strong anyway that Maia's just going to have to utilize everything that he's got jiu-jitsu wise to not only take him down but to keep him down so that he can start to get to work.
His by the way, T Wood's takedown defense is 91% according to Fight Metric. So he probably has been taken down, but he probably, like you said, just scrambled back up again quite quickly. So,
but
yeah,
like I don't know how high to rate Woodley because he's obviously got the belt from that shot against Lawler, and then I thought he probably fucking lost the first Wonderboy fight, but I think he probably did win the rematch, albeit it was dog shit.
Wait, you thought he lost the first fight against Wonderboy?
Yeah, I think I had Wonderboy winning 1, 2, and 4, 5? Is it or 1, 3, 1? I don't know. But
it's possible. There was one swing round basically, or a couple of ones.
You may be right, but I just think in that first Wonderboy fight, the rounds that T Wood won were so dominant.
Yeah,
right?
But I don't think they were 10-8s though.
No. I agree. I'm just saying. I think that my reference is a bit foggy is because of that. But I actually think T was a damn good fighter.
Yeah, but just to go back to Maia, like obviously for the grapplers, he's just like the best to watch because of the way he has this insane jiu-jitsu sort of pedigree, but is able to sort of utilize that because we've seen so many guys with black belts just get dominated in the UFC by guys that aren't even ranked, like haven't really got many belts, but they just get absolutely ruined in the ground and pound. But it's actually really nice because he even like a ground and pound artist, he almost is exclusively submissions. And if he can't get the submission, then he'll go to ground and pound. But it's just really nice to actually see a guy utilize these techniques that are just so effective when they're done properly. But I really, really, really want Maia to fucking ruin Woodley, because I just think Woodley's such an unlikable person anyway. Because I don't know, he's just not a really nice guy, is he?
Well, it's not.
He's a bit of a dick.
Yeah, he's just
he's just delusional. I don't even know if he's like an asshole per se. He's just like he's somebody who always uses a race card. If anything doesn't go his way, he always says that, oh, it's because I'm black, that nobody likes me. Like he made some ridiculous statement the other week saying, like, if
I think he probably has a point in the sense that there is probably still a lot of lingering fucking racial bullshit that, like, obviously there's no place for that right now, but I think the majority of MMA fans that dislike him is not because of the colour of his skin, it's just because he's just fucking...
fights.
Yeah, the way he fights, and he's just a bit of a
boring. And I think it's even worse because not only is it boring, but we know that he can be exceptionally entertaining, but he doesn't fight in that fashion. Like the second Wonder Boy fight, like that was just awful. And it was tense because T Wood can just knock anybody the fuck out like he did against Robbie with a single punch, but he just doesn't put himself under that kind of situation ever, which I think is smart, honestly. I mean, the guy is defending this belt for the fourth time, I think, so I guess props to him, but my God, you can't blame us for not liking you when you fight as safely as you do. So, but I'm picking, God damn, this is a tough fight to call. Jesus Christ. I'm going to pick T Wood. I'm going to pick T Wood by decision, actually. I think there's going to be a couple of hairy situations both ways, but I think T Wood's going to pull it off.
You know what I think? I think he's actually going to stop Maia. Maia's been knocked out before. I think T Wood has power to basically put anybody on their ass. And I think Maia's going to be so focused on the takedown, and it's going to be very difficult to, like we said, T Wood is, he's such a stocky guy with a low center of gravity. He's going to be very tough to take down. And I think at one point he's just going to explode with that crazy right hand of his and just knock him out. That's honestly my prediction. What do you think, Joe? You got to go with Maia, bro. I mean, he's your boy.
Yeah, no, I go Maia by
face crank or neck crank, whatever you call it.
Yeah, Maia by fucking triangle or something mad. That'd be lush. Nah, if it's going to be anything, it'll be Maia by rear naked choke, like second round or something.
Yeah.
Can I just take you back to the Rick Story fight, Joe? Have you seen that?
No, I haven't actually.
Okay, I'm just gonna put this link in the chat. You got to fucking watch when he puts this neck crank on Rick Story.
Is that the ginger kid?
He's not really ginger, is he? No, he's more just blonde.
Because there's one that I've seen where one of his early fights, I think it's pre-UFC, where he puts the guy in like a triangle from mount, and he just chokes him unconscious and just stands up, and the guy's just completely out.
No. This is basically where he takes Rick Story's back, right? And he doesn't really get the elbow under the chin properly, so he just cranks his neck.
Oh yeah, no, I have. And then is it like his nose starts bleeding and stuff?
Yeah, just the blood
just
out of his fucking nose. It's so crazy.
Yeah, I was looking at it, I was like, I think he's gonna break his neck unless he taps her.
Oh my God, man! It's. I mean,
that is one of the most insane submissions I've seen. Actually, I didn't know the guy's name, but I was just like, this is just horrible.
Yeah. It's that's the part of jiu-jitsu I really, really like, man. When you start getting these fucking vicious chokes, or when somebody's limb just gets ripped off Frank Mir style, man. I love that.
I can't even watch that.
Oh, I love that. I watch that all the time. I'm a sick fuck. That's why I watch MMA.
He tries to snap it. It doesn't go, so he just puts his whole body weight behind it and just bang, snaps it. Oh, God.
Bought him a ticket to Snap City. All right. So you're going with my rear naked choke?
Twister.
Twister. I don't think he really likes the Eddie Bravo school. Who does my actually grapple under? Who's his jiu-jitsu teacher?
I think he's Gracie Barra. I'll just check now.
Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. Imagine though this guy.
He's like Carlos Gracie.
Yeah, I was about to say, imagine this guy becomes champion. It's a really weird situation for the UFC. I mean, I think the grappling community will go crazy, but apart from that, most people will not be very happy with it.
No, and what the grappling community, like 2% of the population.
Yeah.
I think that's the reason why T Wood put it on like such short notice. I don't think T Wood obviously wanted to fight Maia, but if you're gonna fight him, might as well just fight him on like 6 weeks notice or something. So, because this fight wasn't announced until like a month and a half ago, so I'm glad that it's on the card, but it's kind of, I think, unfair to Maia. But I think Maia is one of those guys where he's just always in shape, and like he's honestly like the Yoda of jiu-jitsu, where he's just like teaching his kids how to live life as like a good person, and living life just as this dedicated craftsman. Like Maia's like one of those guys where you just like really look up to. If I was a huge jiu-jitsu practitioner, he would be like my god for sure.
You'd be very happy.
Yeah. Fuck it. Now it's time for the grudge match. Probably the most heated, rivalry definitely in MMA, but
this is the best grudge match I've seen since Fox Groves 2. In terms of natural hate.
And they hate each other more, right? Compared to Fox Groves?
Yeah, probably.
The reason why is because there's so many failed attempts at the rematch. Like, I was shocked. Like, this fight was supposed to happen, I think, at UFC 197. That was 2.5 years ago. I think this is the 5th time they've actually endured some kind of training camp to fight one another. So for them to fight only twice in that span of time is pretty remarkable. I think John, we all know, you can make the case he's the greatest MMA fighter of all time, which is kind of crazy to think, but like what I'm concerned about, and this is like a question that I've had for quite some time, is that John versus OSP? Is that the John that we're going to see for the rest of his career? Which is still a great fighter, but somebody who plays it safer, who's not as explosive. Because for me, what made John so great was not just his physical talent, but his ability and his willingness to take chances. The flying knees to open fights, the way that he was able to throw elbows in positions I've never seen before in my life. His creativity, his grounded pound, his willingness to wrestle Cormier when Cormier is a fucking Olympic level wrestler, and just his creativity is what made me love John so much. And I'm just worried, like, has he come across this point in his life where like his body doesn't react the same way to certain situations? Like, is that craziness that consumed his life, when he was doing all these drugs and all of these, substances and stuff like that? Like, is that part of kind of who he is, where now he's more of like a reserve fighter who wants to fight in more kind of like tactical, methods compared to what he was in the past? So, like, I'm still picking him to beat DC because I don't think DC is, I don't think DC looked all that great against Rumble. And he's 39 years old, so I think John should win. And John won pretty, not comfortably in his first fight, but I just thought he kind of had the upper hand in pretty much every position except when the action was close. But I just want to see John kind of like regain his reputation as just the baddest motherfucker alive, because what he was able to do when he was younger and in his prime was like shit I've never seen before. Like, he's like a Michael Jordan of fucking MMA when he was 23, 24 years old. And I just want him to be able to continue that as he's, approaching 30.
See, I'm quite skeptical of John, and that's because of the failed test. And I don't believe in fucking excuses, and especially not in MMA, because he's not the first guy to fucking blame his failed fucking test on some dick pills or some sexual stimulants. Like Anderson Silva did the same fucking shit, and we all know why he took it. So I kind of discredit him based on that, man. A failed test is a failed test for me. I'm not going to go into the technicalities of it because, that's not what it's about for me. I leave that up to the experts. But at the end of the day, he failed the fucking test. So that is an immediate suspicion over your entire fucking career. I don't care what anybody else says. You have guys, obviously, that are suspect based on visuals and body types and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, he failed the fucking test. And I don't think he gets enough criticism for it. I think for some reason, this guy doesn't really get enough criticism for it. Maybe because of his accomplishment, maybe because of his talent. And you say, he's looked different. Well, it could also be because of that. Look at maybe this is the post USADA John Jones that we're seeing right now. I don't know, man. At the end of the day,
small.
What?
The sample size is too small.
Based on what? What do you mean? The sample size just because he had one fight. Yeah, correct. That's why this fight is quite interesting, right? Because we're really, really going to see now versus a very good opponent what he's really made of, and that's what makes this fight quite interesting for me as well. I mean, Cormier, yes, he's quite old. He still looked good, I think. Not great, but he still looked good. What's so funny?
Because just the way you said good. There's a lot of... But the one thing I will say, though, is this is a completely flawed logical kind of argument that I'm going to make here, but like just the things that we saw John do in his run, like in that 8-fight win streak at 205. Like I've always operated under the suspicion that everybody takes some kind of enhancement, and I know that's a really unfair thing to say, and it's very kind of generalized, but I just don't think you can be that great at something just by the use of PEDs. And
I got 2 words for you: Vitor
Sure.
Belfort.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, I mean, spinning fucking kicks, insane highlight reel knockouts. Where did that come from?
I can also make the comeback that Vitor was also incredible as well, though, when he was younger. I mean, even prior to what his just like the suspicions of what he looked like. And this is a really kind of fuzzy gray area, right? Because we're making pretty much like assessments based on, what they looked at this point of their career compared to that point of their career. But I could also make just as silly of an argument saying that then if that's the case, then why isn't everybody else who took roids for a certain period of time looked as amazing as these two guys? It's just, I think Vitor and Jones are both special guys, and especially at what Jones was able to do, like at that age. Like, I don't know if you think he took steroids. Did he take steroids when he won his first belt at 22? Did he take it the year after, or was it when he was 25? I don't know, but I just rest my impression of him as a fighter that even if he wasn't on roids, or if he was on roids, like to be that spectacular at something. If it was the case that steroids made like that much of a marked impact on somebody, then everybody else would be that much better at what they do if that was the case. But I just don't think that.
I get your point in the sense that, he's still a very, very talented guy, steroids or not, and that's what you're trying to say, right? The same with Vitor. He's always been a very, very talented fighter, and I completely agree with you. I mean, a lot of it is technique. A lot of it is controlling distance. Like he's a master at controlling distance. Very, very talented.
Reach. Like, that's fucking mind-boggling. Like, not even heavyweights have that reach. Like, Stipe has a 76-inch reach. Like, John Jones has a fucking an 82-inch reach. Like, that's a godly like.
Yeah, but it's also the way that he fights, man. I mean, you have guys like Struve, who have like insane reach as well, but they don't know how to fucking deal with it. John is very, very good.
His leg kicks are the things that like sets him apart, I think, from others, is that he knows how to use those oblique kicks so much better than other people. And I think even though you don't see guys' legs getting broken by them, I think they have as big an impact as anything else in the fight, because guys know that if they get, if they stick that front foot just that little bit closer to set up the right hand, there's a chance that they could just get their knee blown backwards by one of his kicks. So that's what stops guys from really engaging too much.
You know what the problem is with John Jones? He doesn't really have any fucking weaknesses. I mean, he is. I think the reason why he's so creative is because he's not afraid to go to a certain position. I remember when he pulled guard as well on, I think it was on Vitor maybe, at the end of the round. Like he's very confident that he can take the fight anywhere and still win, and that's what makes him so free in there.
I reckon he's just got absolute beast strength when he's up against the cage as well.
Yes.
So even if he thinks, if I make a mistake and I get punished or I get taken down, he just backs his ability to sprawl or just generally his wrestling is so good. It's not just he's technically so good, but he's just so strong anyway that he can always get himself out of positions and into a dominant grip somehow.
Wrestling, fantastic. Submissions, fantastic. Striking, very creative, very effective. Maybe not great knockout power, but he does have knockout power in other or unorthodox ways, like with his elbows, for example. Remember that fight where he was using his elbows as a fucking jab? What the fuck was that? What fight was that?
I thought it was Glover.
I think it was Glover too. That was insane.
And not only that, the guy's just tough. We talked about guys like Robbie who are a throwback to the old days. I think Jones is cut in the same cloth. He's just a bad motherfucker. He has an incredible chin. I've never seen the guy hurt. He can endure through pain like a motherfucker. Obviously, that armbar that he endured through Vitor, most guys tap out after 2-3 seconds. Jones does not give a fuck. And not only that, but I just think it's not even Jones being I still have questions about Jones, but for me it's just about concerns about Cormier too. I know he made weight, quote unquote, against Rumble, but I just think he's 39 euros for fuck's sake, and just on paper there's no way he should win against somebody who's 9 years younger than him, and also another guy, whether he was using steroids his entire career or not, who's considered probably the most talented UFC fighter of all time. It just doesn't make sense for me to pick DC. But another question I want to ask you then, Kimo, if Jones beats DC, handedly and impressively, and he passes his drug test with USADA, then how does that change your assessment then of John in terms of that performance? Does that alleviate kind of your previous judgments on him as a fighter when he did pop? How does that impact how you view him as a fighter?
I think it's a very good question. Here's the thing with me, right? I'm not one of these guys, and whether it's boxing or MMA, I'm not one of these guys that always starts parading around conclusions about fighter when it comes to drug testing, right? That's not really what I'm trying to do here. But I do get a sense that in MMA, where there's been a lot of scrutiny from fans and media over the last few years on this topic, and I seem to think that it's not really focused enough on John Jones specifically, right? It's not like I come out and discredit his entire fucking career, because as you said, who hasn't been doing it? And that's a very hard conclusion to tell. So in terms of his overall achievement, in terms of his overall legacy, he probably still is the greatest, I mean, I can't deny his talent, but it is a question mark at the same time. It's difficult for me to say, Lim. It really isn't. If he beats Cormier now and he beats him decisively, obviously I think that's a fucking incredible achievement once again. Also because I rate Cormier incredibly high. I think he's so underrated. I mean, we've looked at Cowboy's resume before. Have we looked at Cormier's resume? Yeah. Have we seen what this fucking guy has done? I mean, he has gone up to heavyweight, iced Bigfoot, tossed around guys like Josh Barnett, who are some of the world's best grapplers at heavyweight, went down to light heavyweight, beat everybody except the GOAT. I mean, he is an incredible fighter. That's pound for pound, in my opinion. So beating him once again is a massive achievement for Jones.
For me, this fight is all about how much has the years out and the partying and all that shit deteriorated Jones. I think Cormier will have whipped himself up into such good shape that he will hit that level that he hit in the last, maybe not in the last fight, but he'll be at a level which you'll say okay, well, Jones has got to be 80% what he was, and if he's not that 80%, Cormier will beat him. So it's just whether or not Jones has enough left in that tank from all the years of fucking dicking about. But as I get where Lim's coming from, where he's like, oh, I just can't see like I just don't see how you can pick Cormier. I get that because the freakishness of how good Jones is, and the fact that he just beat him at his own game in the last fight just by wrestling him. But I don't think you can't. This is the intriguing thing about the fight. You just don't know what sort of fighter Jones is going to turn up as. He could get in there and just be this absolute beast that wrecked Machida and all these other legends from 4 or 5 years ago, or he could be the fighter that turned up against OSP. And if that fighter turns up, this could really go either way.
But the only rebuttal I have to that, though, is I think the reason why he fought in the manner that he did against OSP was exactly because he was fighting OSP. I think Jones actually thrives best when he's under situations where he has to compete at a very high level. Like, if you think about Gustafsson, I don't know if he was on roids in that fight or not, but he wasn't in that great of physical shape. Like, you look at his body type in that fight compared to some of the other fights he had, he was kind of bloated. He wasn't as defined as he was. But the thing about Jones is that I think he's such a fucking competitor that even if he isn't in optimal shape and you put him under these situations that are adverse and he needs to step up, like, he is always going to rise to the occasion, in my opinion. So I think this fight is a perfect fight for him to look best in, despite maybe him not being in his physical peak like he used to in the past. So I just think, I'm trying to think of ways for DC to win, because honestly I kind of want DC to win so we can have a trilogy, but it's just really tough for me to kind of select that outcome because I just don't see it happening. I don't know what situation that DC can win. The only way I can possibly see DC win is if he wins a decision, but even then I'm having difficulties picking him to win the fight.
I want DC. I don't know. I probably want DC to win because I just think he's a really good guy and he's done a lot. Like, he carries himself really well and I really respect that. And obviously Jones is obviously an awful human being, but I think it would be, if Jones is going to win, I would much prefer him to actually stop DC, because that would be
me too.
Wow, this guy is he's back and he's better than he ever was, because the light heavyweight division is really awful at the moment, especially in the UFC. Like, there's a good chance that he goes up and fights flipping Lesnar or another heavyweight after this. But if he can go there and actually stop DC, it actually rejuvenates the entire division, because you've got this absolute killer at the top, and you can just chuck him in with a Gustafsson rematch. Jimmy Manuwa sniffing about. There's decent fights to be made. I just don't want it to be another wrestle fest and he grinds out like a unanimous decision win. As impressive as that would be, it feels like we've already seen that before.
It's funny that you say, Lim, that you think he can only win by decision. I think he can only win by knockout. I think he's proven in the last fight also that he tried to fight at a pace that he simply cannot do. I think Cormier is an excellent fighter, but I do think his gas tank is a little bit shaky when he's up against a guy where he has to put continuous effort to get him down to the ground. And he can only win by getting on the inside, and that requires him to constantly push forward, constantly put the pressure on Jones. And Jones is all the time, negating that with kicks to the body, push kicks, in the fucking chest. It's very difficult to keep that sort of pressure on Jones. I think the only way that DC can win this fight is if he hurts Jones. He has to hurt him with punches or kicks or anything.
That first fight showed me that he can. Because that fight was actually close in my opinion. And the first 2 rounds, DC was, I think even the third round, DC was doing a really good job in fighting at the distance that he wanted to. He was winning the exchanges when it came to punches, and he clipped Jones with plenty of big shots. And Jones, I don't think he ever got hurt in that fight. So I can't see a knockout happening. And you're probably right. I can't really see a decision happening either. And for me, John, if he follows a game plan to a T, like he did in the first fight, and just fight on his back foot, throw those beautiful kicks from occasion, I think he can coast to a pretty easy decision. The only way that I can see, DC maybe knocking Jones out if Jones gets overly aggressive and does something stupid while he's kind of closing the distance. And we all know Jones is one of those just cocky sons of bitches who will completely bypass his physical advantages to prove a point. And I can see that happening again in this fight. And maybe him not having those physical kind of like gifts that he used to when he was younger, and maybe that catching up to him. But I don't know, man. I'm still picking Jones pretty comfortably to win this fight. And but I agree with Joe as well. I do hope it's in spectacular fashion, because obviously if Jones wins, there's not going to be a third fight. So if that's the case, why not just win in impressive fashion rather than, like a coasting decision, so to speak.
Lim, I do feel like you're falling in the same trap though, where you say like, I don't think he's going to hurt him. Let's not forget, this is MMA. Eh? We've seen crazier shit happen in the past. I think he can hurt.
All it takes is one big overhand
in
the chin.
Somebody can always be hurt. Just because you fought one fight and you look fucking invincible doesn't mean that you can't be hurt in the next fight, man. Look at what happened to Luke Rockhold. Look what happened to so many fucking guys. There is absolutely a possibility that DC just throws a punch and Jones fucking hits the canvas. I mean, this is an absolute possibility. Jones is 30 now as well, almost. I mean, yeah, he's been inactive. He could be caught. I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen. Am I picking DC? No, but I'm not counting him out. Absolutely not.
Like, I get your point. Like, obviously anybody can get knocked out, but he got caught so many times in that first fight, and he just stood there and he took it all. So, I mean, what does he have to get caught with then? Like this crazy overhand right hand, that he never saw. Like, the punch that you alluded to with Luke. I mean, the guy just didn't give a shit at all in that fight, and I think he got clipped without even seeing the punch coming at him. So, if that's kind of like what your prediction rests on, then that's obviously speaks a great volume as to like how much you have to hope something that probably isn't going to happen hopefully happens.
No, the probability is obviously less of it actually happening, but I mean, again, look at a guy like Robbie Lawler, right? Like he literally laughed at Rory McDonald kicking him in the fucking face, but then he gets put out by a punch from Woodley. I don't think it's just like, a conclusion that you can draw from one fight based on the other. I think also the way that these guys' bodies react, because MMA is such an intense sport, and the tax that you fucking have to pay over and over for going through these training camps and getting hit and getting kicked and all of that. I just think also their bodies react differently from fight to fight, So I don't think you can count out anybody just punching somebody else in the face and them having a different reaction. I think we've seen that a lot in MMA, so I definitely don't count it out. And as you said, Cormier was relatively effective on the inside. I'm not quite sure if it was enough to win a lot of the rounds in the first fight, but he was in there. He was a live dog. But the problem with him, really, I think, was his gas tank. I think that was the biggest issue. And then Jones took him down, and then it was like, oh shit, we just had an Olympic fucking freestyle wrestler being taken down by Jones.
What's your game plan then for DC? Because obviously for DC to land that big punch that you're alluding to, he has to get in range, right? But that also kind of means that he has to exert a certain level of energy to get to that range. So like, what does he do? Does he just go all out in the first round, or does he just look for that huge knockout punch in like the closing seconds of each round? Like, what does he do?
I think what you're going to see is exactly the same, maybe just a little bit better. I think DC pretty much has the same fucking game plan in most fights, unless you really can easily take the guy down and smother him. I think he's going to have like he fought the same against Gustafsson, he fought the same against Jones. He just comes forwards and put pressure, throws a lot of hands. I think you're going to see the same thing. He's probably going to try, he has to. There's no other way. What else is he going to do? He can't stay on the outside. He has no other choice. He has to get in there and fucking throw punches and just be a bit more. Try to be a bit more effective.
He's got to do what he did in the first fight, but at a higher intensity and more accuracy
and smarter.
Yeah, that's easier said than done. But
that's asking so much from a guy from a fight that took place 3-4 years ago. So
it is. I agree with you. It's a very big task.
But he's just got to push the pace. He's got to just make Jones uncomfortable all the time. Yeah. For 5 rounds, just be on him.
He's got to hurt him, man. He's got to hurt him, either kick his fucking legs under him or hit him in the jaw and hurt him. He's got to hurt him. He cannot outwork Jones. He's too young. He's too strong. He's in too good of shape. I don't think you can outwork him. I think his only shot in this fight, which I think is a live shot, because even if he hurts him and takes him down, and starts grinding him out a little bit, but it has to come from a moment where the momentum of the fight shifts. Otherwise, we're looking at another 4-1, 3-2 type of fight where Jones is just so skillful with his kicks and his punches and his wrestling.
And he has to finish him. The thing about Jones, too, that we didn't really mention is that he has incredible recovery skills. Like, even against Gustafsson, even within those rounds where he got hurt or he had instances where, had the round been 2 or 3 minutes longer, he could have potentially gotten finished. He just recovers it in the next round. Like, nothing happened. So if DC doesn't finish him, it's just going to give him the same opportunity, or it's going to force DC to do the same thing over and over again. That's just so mentally grueling, I can imagine. I'd tell you what's
horrible as well for DC is that I don't think I've ever seen Jones really, really wobbled.
Never.
Like, and in the Gustafsson fight, he's like, he might be buzzed here. You don't even know for sure. Like, if fighter does like the stinky leg or something like that, you're like, well, he's obviously very hurt here. Jones has never shown anything like that.
Yeah.
Even against Gus, I think it was mostly like facial damage. I don't think he was ever really concussed or rocked or anything like that. Yeah. He was just struggling with a lot of facial damage. The eye,
a lot of cocaine in his system still flushing out. Because I don't care what you say, man. I don't think he looked that great in that fight, just from a physical perspective. So, he was probably not fighting in his optimal shape there. But I don't know. So, I mean, it seems like you guys have done a pretty good job in terms of plotting ways that DC could win. But what's your ultimate prediction? Who are you picking?
I'm going with Jones by decision. I don't think there's going to be a finish. I think DC's too tough to finish, man. He's too fucking tough. I mean, the guy is just, speaking of his chin and his resilience, I think this will be another decision I think it's going to look quite similar. I really do think so. I don't think it's going to be that different. I think the game plan options are very limited to change. It's just of executing it in a better way. And Jones is the younger, more talented, fresher fighter. So I see another 4-1, 3-2 type of fight. Jones gets his belt back, and DC probably rides off into the sunset. Or maybe goes to heavyweight. I don't know. But I think he's had a great career. He doesn't need to fight on.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Just quick, Lim, what's your prediction?
I'm picking Jones by decision. I wouldn't be surprised if he submits him too. I just think Jones is such a creative submitter, and even despite the fact that he's not like a highly decorated jiu-jitsu practitioner, some of the stuff that he just comes up with.
Oh no, he can handle himself, mate. He does a lot of like jiu-jitsu tournaments anyway. So
standing guillotine.
Oh, gee,
that's like the go-to submission I show people when they ask me what MMA is. Like,
fucking hell, man!
Guillotine
gives me a boner.
Carlos Newton style.
Yeah, but it's something that I'm really, really looking forward to. I do think it kind of lost a little bit of luster.
Are you going then?
I'm going to New York. I'm going to the Broner fight, the Broner Mikey fight. Yeah, I know. I'd rather go to the UFC card, but New York is a better city than Anaheim, so fuck it.
Oh, nice, man. Just quickly, what do you reckon? Do you reckon he'd be able to beat someone like Brock Lesnar then? It came out this week that they might make that fight afterwards.
Yeah, I think he'd be able to beat Brock.
That'd be funny.
Yeah, but yeah, man, it's I don't know. I'm still a Jones fan. I know you guys think he's a shit human being, but are you guys still fans of John?
Like
do you guys root for him?
Like as a fighter, you have to appreciate. Like, he's just could be probably is the greatest of all time, isn't he? Really, if you think about it, like he's never lost properly. He's just got no weaknesses. Like even guys like
like Connor or GSP, you could say like, oh, they had these holes in their game and they've been exposed.
Oh, yeah.
Way like Jones, the only time he's ever been is Gustafsson, where he was out of shape and he still, no one can argue that he didn't win that fight. It was just closer than the other ones.
Well, I can argue that, but that's another story.
Yeah, that was a pretty close fight, actually. It's kind of like
very close, very fucking close.
Yeah.
But Andy, and the resume is insane as well. It's not like he's just like Demetrius Johnson or something, where he's just beat up average guys his entire career. Like, he's run through everyone.
Just Jones's career, the reason why I root for him is because, to me, there's nothing worse in life than seeing potential get wasted like that. And for him to waste 3 years of his fucking athletic prime from the age of 26 and a half to 30 is just an absolute sham. Like, it's complete bullshit. And this is a guy that we're already considering the greatest of all time. And 3 years of his athletic prime has been removed. 26 to 29 is kind of universally recognized as when an athlete reaches that pinnacle. It's when their age kind of meets with their physical athletic prime, and just all of it comes together.
But if you think about it, like, who would he have fought in that period? No one was coming out. There wasn't like this young killer that he had to fight. Like,
yeah,
he would have
I think that's
Rumble.
easy to say in hindsight, though. Maybe something does happen just by the simple fact that he's still there. I mean, I don't know. I really don't know. I can't play revisionist.
He probably, in all seriousness, would have gone up to heavyweight about a year ago.
Yeah,
there were always talks of that.
But the thing about John too, though, is that he makes the weight so easily. Like, he's at
carry. I don't think he carries a lot of weight around his legs. Like, I think that's what ruins most fighters, is that they naturally carry a lot of lower body weight. Like, people like Connor, that's why he struggled so much at featherweight, because his legs were so big naturally. But John's legs are actually very skinny, even though he's really tall.
And he's so strong. That's something that I've always been curious about with John, is like, he has no muscle in his legs, but he's so freakishly strong. He's an enigma for sure. But yeah, man. Looking forward to it, definitely. It's the best card of the year, man. UFC has been pretty poor this year. A lot of it, I think, due to unfavorable circumstances. But this is the best card for the year, so I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Absolutely, man. I'm looking very forward to the fight. And to be honest, just to answer your previous question, I kind of want to see him lose, because I do like it when John is just being real and he's not being like the fucking fake Christian that he used to be in the past, and just be honest about himself. But I thought he was an absolute dickhead at the fucking press conference this week. The way he was talking about DC, calling him a crackhead and talking to him about cheating. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Honestly,
you pissed hot for fucking estrogen blockers, you fucking piece of shit. I did not enjoy that at all.
Have you listened to his Rogan podcast?
Yeah.
Where he tries to justify how he hit the pregnant woman and then ran off. Like, he's just got massive issues. He's reminds me a lot of Rousey, but he's obviously a lot better. But they're both emotionally underdeveloped, in a sense.
Yeah, but that, I mean, it may sound weird, but that I didn't even really care about that much, because that was outside of the realm of MMA. Like, what do you expect the guy to say about that? There's nothing he can say to talk good about that. And I don't mind it when he says fuck DC, for example. That part I like, but I don't like when he starts attacking DC in certain aspects, which he's failed miserably at, and nobody even capitalized on it. Not even DC. Yeah. I mean, I would have rebutted and destroyed that fucking guy. Like, you have so much ammunition on him. It's just crazy. I mean, I really don't understand it. I mean, it's very, very strange to me. But I don't like at all how he came across in that presser. I thought it was very fucking ridiculous, and that makes me wanna. That honestly made me want to see DC knock him the fuck out and just have his revenge. But yeah, the odds are pretty low.
I think
Pussy is still there.
Yeah, I'm still here. I think DC has been so, negatively burdened by public opinion I think MMA fans are probably the dumbest, probably human beings, along with boxing fans, and their continued support of John and their hatred for DC to me is just baffling. Like anytime you see DC on a screen at some UFC fight, everyone boos. So I just think DC he's just fed up with it. He doesn't care anymore. And people don't care what you do. As long as you're great, they don't care what you do. You can fuck hookers, cheat on your pregnant wife, hit pregnant people on drive-bys or whatever the fuck it is. Like, people just don't care. As long as you're great, that's all they care about.
But that's funny, Lim, that you say that, because don't forget, John Jones always used to be booed, huh? That dude was never fucking cheered. He was not a big fan favorite. It wasn't until he turned into a dick that people started cheering for him during the DC fucking legacy. It's really fucking weird. It's really, really strange. Controversy sells, man.
Of course it does.
I mean, John always used to be a very polite guy, He'd always talk about his Christianity and stuff like that. Nobody ever cheered for him back then. Look at the old pressers. Look at the old weigh-ins. People were always booing him.
Do you reckon Woodley's sitting there wondering why he's not getting cheered then?
Yeah.
All right, boys. So that pretty much covers it. Now, on to the card, of course, on August 26th, the Conor versus Floyd fight.
Fuck me, dude. Are you serious?
Are you guys excited? What's your prediction? Go.
You bum.
Dude, I'm thinking Conor, man. All these fucking Instagram pictures have got me hyped. I've never seen Conor.
In all seriousness, I am amazed at the amount of people that have been conned into the narrative of he's only got to land one punch.
I've been conned. I think Conor's gonna win. I'm serious. I've been sold, dude. Conor just has that effect on people, man. He just makes people go full retard, and I think
the general population has gone nuts with it. Like, they've lost their minds. Like, for me, the best analogy I've heard is that it's like the world champion in fucking crazy golf trying to beat hundreds over 18 holes of proper golf. Like, that is the exact equivalent of what's happening.
It just takes one punch, bro.
Oh my god! You know what? I'll be honest though, Lim. I do sometimes sit, at work or whatever, and then I just fantasize for like 1 minute about Conor knocking Floyd out. But it's just stupid, man. I mean, this fight is a fucking sham, and I hate Floyd and I love Conor, but there's no fucking way he's winning this fight. And if you ask me, I don't even think they're going to put effort that much into creating an exciting fight. I think it'll look like a sparring match and everybody's just going to be pissed off at the end of it.
If he did win, it would undoubtedly, without question, be the biggest upset in the history of sport.
Of everything. Yeah, of everything. Of any sport.
Like,
Conor's in such great shape.
Anything else to it.
You're drinking the Kool-Aid badly, Liv.
Dude, have you seen his pictures? He's so ripped.
I know. He looks massive as well.
Yeah.
And he beat the crap out of Malignaggi. Let's not forget that. Two-weight world champion.
You know what it is, guys? Like, when I analyze the fight, Floyd has his head is too small, his core is just too small, and his legs are too small. I just, when Conor man touches that little skull of his, it's just going to clatter off the canvas.
I would pick Ted Cheeseman to beat him 49 times out of 50.
Hell yeah. 50 out of 50.
Who the fuck is Ted?
You'll hear about that on the next show when we discuss the new JD Sports Next Gen.
Anyways, so you're coming to Canelo Triple G then, yeah?
So, are you asking me or Joe Morgan?
I don't know, either of you guys. That's all right.
We're going to AJ's fight in November at the Millennium Stadium in Cardiff.
Dude,
it's going to be Vegas, bro. It's going to be Vegas.
Yeah.
November.
We can all go for a roll then.
Okay.
It's locked, bro.
Yeah, locked.
Eddie has already said it's there is only one basically
bitter, and that's T-Mobile Arena, Las Vegas. So it's going to be on, mate. So,
all right. Well, anyways,
it's going to be a global event, innit?
That's the show. I don't know, guys.
But man, hold on, man. I'm going to keep people in suspense. I'm not going to announce yet my confirmation of going to Canelo Triple G and Superfly, but it's very close to being finalized.
How many thousands of views is this episode going to get then?
Like 19,000?
Probably, yes. Yeah, we've put it back on the map now. We need to continue this momentum.
Yeah, we'll be on next April if we're lucky.
Yeah, we'll see you in another 9 months, guys.
Cam just typed out 19 views we've had.
I wasn't too far off. Only 18,881 views off.
Let's make a commitment, though. Let's tweet out this podcast to the entire MMA Beats cast. Maybe they can like retweet it and spread it.
We'll tell Luke that we stuck up for him.
I'm sure Jeff Wagenheim will do that.
I don't want that bum retweeting my work.
Bruh. Peanut allergies.
Dude, what about B-Shop, our boy B-Shop, being an artist?
Oh, fuck. We should get B-Shop on the pod.
He'd probably come on.
Yeah, seriously, you would. I know where he trains at. Boxing Burn in Santa Monica. I'll just be like, yo, B-Shop, we got like a huge boxing podcast, bro. You want...
We need your input for Mayweather McGregor, man.
Yes, Mayweather. Like, oh, for sure, bro. Let me know, dude.
100%.
100%, B.
Yeah, I don't know.
Wrap it up.
We've never had to chase pussy in our lives, though, Lim, so let's not chase
Never,
pussy.
Dude. Hanging with the boys.
All right, boys. Let's wrap it up. Let's give some final thoughts, and then we'll close it off. Joe Morgan, you want to go first?
No, I'm done.
Jesus Christ! It's your first Mystic Men, and this is why you have to say it?
No, I enjoyed it. I thought it was an extremely valuable experience to my life. Yeah, I just hope Maya Rex Woodley. Hopefully they allowed you can introduce the gi into MMA and we can start getting some like collar chokes and stuff like that. That'd be great. But
introduce it used to be like that in the old days, man.
Yeah. Well, let's get it back and we can get Hoist in arm barring massive Japanese blokes. But
I'm sure that'll resonate with one other human being in the world.
Yeah. No, it was a good show, guys. Enjoyed. Hopefully we'll get back into this now. Because MMA does shit on boxing at the moment.
Lim, final thoughts?
No, it's just good to be back, with the boys. We never chase pussy in our lives, dude. So that's one thing that I just want to make clear to everyone. We never chase pussy. We never chase tail, and we never chase faggots in the ring. So that's just one thing to always live your life by, and I just want to think...
disclaimer, I don't endorse these derogatory homophobic terms of my colleague here.
And I just want to thank Connor for everything he's done for me in terms of just being more confident in myself, the way that I walk, the way that I talk, the way that I hit the heavy bag at the gym. Sometimes I'll just look at it and put my arms straight across like Connor does when he fought Eddie. I'll just look at the heavy bag like, what you gonna do about it? And then I'll just slap the heavy bag and just have my own conversations with it sometimes. So he's done a lot for my
heavy bag a weasel.
Yeah, you little weasel. It's done a lot for my self-confidence. And yeah, that's pretty much it, man. It was a good show. Hopefully the card is fantastic on Saturday. And yeah, I just can't wait to bang again, man.
All right, bros. I'll finish this up Cam style. I want to thank Jiu-Jitsu. I want to thank Leglock Lim. My name is Kimura Kimo, and I want to thank everybody in the chat. And we'll be back in about half a year. Peace out, boys.
Do we have anyone in the chat, by the way?
we only have Black Smash Joe. That's about it.
So they're messing up going through a Mixler then.
All right, let's hit the outro, man. Have a good one. Peace.